Do we make sure the audio was good?
Mm-hmm. Well, we can't know until we're live, which we're live now.
We're live now.
So we'll say hello. So this should...
Hello.
Just waiting for this to catch up.
And
Hopefully everyone can hear
welcome
us. Let us know if you can hear us.
What part is this anyway? Part 15? Is that my voice? Did I hear that? Okay, there we go.
We're good. We're good. All right. The audio's good.
Great. All right. So we were just live last night, but for those just tuning in, this is part 15, The Long Way to Hell. Was that Many Hell series? Is that what it's titled?
It's Mackenzie's title.
Yeah, Mackenzie's genius title.
Your sister. For those who don't know.
And for those who don't know, I'm Haley Ram. This is my husband, Reagan Ram.
Hello.
And we have been detailing the abuse that happened in and around the Long family singers. If you were familiar with Treasures from a Shoebox blog back in 2010, 2012, I think was when that blog was running. And then the Long Way to Go family blog that us girls ran with our mom. And so we had this online presence, right? So we've kind of detailed a lot, my childhood growing up, and then our relationship, getting married or getting engaged. And we'd stopped last night where we were on our honeymoon. And yeah, so we're gonna pick up from there and kind of detail up through the first 4 years, 4 to 5 years.
So yeah, so kind of the way the series has gone is kind of, you started off by just sharing all the abuse that went on.
Yeah.
And so now the second half of the series, we're kind of going chronologically and walking through how things were, and how you weren't even really 100% aware of all the abuse. And then so now we're going through how you started to remember, and how and basically we're going to eventually get caught up to the present day. Which will be exciting.
Very exciting.
Yes. And you've had lots of more memories since we started this series.
Yeah, because as I learned, it comes in waves depending on how much you have. Not everyone.
And that might sound really confusing. Like, how do you not remember being abused, being beaten, being raped? How do you not remember? I mean, you remembered being beaten. But...
I remembered one instance of being beaten. I didn't know at this point in time, when we first got married, that the spankings were actual physical and sexual abuse.
Because you guys just called them spankings.
I just called them spankings. I'd referred spankings to you, and we had never actually delved into the definition of what that meant until like a year in.
Yeah, then I didn't even know what you meant until
I had no idea. So
I was horrified. But so yeah, you can go watch other episodes if you want to know all that. But basically, we're going to be explaining how this is a real scientifically observed phenomenon, that when you're in these abusive situations, especially as a child, a lot of times you can
especially long term,
over years, where there's no escape, your brain has to protect itself by basically giving you amnesia and blocking out the traumatic memories so you can still function.
It's we'll get to that because I have some things to say on that. So kind of there was also instances of different ways this started to bleed out into our lives, because you didn't know what the heck you signed up for.
Not 100%.
You did not know. I didn't know what we were going to be walking into. I thought, hey, we're going to get married. Life is going to be great. And it's going to be amazing. And
the marriage part's been
the marriage part. Yeah, that's been the easy part.
That's been the best. That's been,
aside from having to deal with, my neuroticness, which we didn't understand was stemming from trauma responses. So if you feel like you're neurotic, but you've handled it like a champ.
Yeah, we haven't had any marriage problems. That's been really easy.
No.
That's been the easy part. It's all the other stuff.
The external stuff. Our relationship has been beautiful. It's the external stuff that's been like, what the heck is this? So in the beginning it was amazing. Like, I got to experience having privacy. And
what's that, precious?
Like, I felt like a total queen. Like, we lived in a 700 square foot house. And I was
almost as big as your family's house. had how many more people living in there when you left?
Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 or 10. Maybe 9 or 10. Something like that. Quite a bit. And I'm like, hey, there's only one bathroom, but I'm like, there's only 2 of us. And we're married, so big difference here. So that was fun. Like on our honeymoon, like we had an extended like we planned a whole road trip, and then then we vacationed for another week on Sanibel.
So we got some pictures of the honeymoon. So yeah,
that was at the cabin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
We went to Busch Gardens, cheetah hunt before and during. And then that's the picture on the left is when we first got to our house and I carried you across the threshold, or maybe that's the day after or something.
Something like that. Yeah, your family had put a lovely like welcome home sign.
Then we did a lot of traveling to marketing events. But I don't know if you're getting into that.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the fun. Was like our first year. We spent a lot of time like catching me up business wise because we're going to do business together, and so we had a lot of trips. And I got to
Las Vegas, saw the Hoover Dam from the airplane.
That was amazing. Going to Las Vegas and getting out of town, of course.
Oh my goodness. I thought I'd throw this in there. We took these pictures and sent these to your mom for fun because a big thing in your family was avoid even the appearance of evil, which is a poor translation of a passage. I don't remember what passage it is, but I can't remember it's the King James version of the Bible translates it as avoid even the appearance of evil.
Yeah, so like if you're going to a movie theater, that's even looked upon as a little risque because no one knows if you're actually going to that PG movie or if you're going into a rated R movie. So
you can't do anything that even looks like sinning. So we had you sit down at the because in Vegas, like there's just slot machines and everywhere. So it's like
everywhere in the hotel. There's this whole casino.
You didn't actually do any gambling, but
but for me, that was like, oh my gosh.
Because what that Bible passage actually means is everything that is evil, don't do that evil thing. Avoid every kind of evil is what it's actually saying.
Not just the appearance, but yeah. So it was, there's funny little hiccups of trying to travel because my ID had been thrown away accidentally, and I thought, I'll just get a new one in Florida. So it was a whole hullabaloo, and I didn't even get my license until October of 2017. So I was 22 years old.
And we've been married for several months at that point. Mm-hmm. There we are on stage. We got a trophy. That's one of our business coaches. There we are on stage with a sales trophy. So that was cool.
That was cool.
So
you teased it ahead. So we got one thing that was, and I know we covered this in another video, is my mom had kind of like made it like, hey, you may not want her because she may not be able to have kids. Never mind the fact that they just didn't take me to a gynecologist to go get checked out, because I don't know why we didn't do that. And so there was always this like, I may not, like, is that going to be a problem? Of course it wasn't for you, but for me, I was like, I really wanted to have kids. Like I really wanted to have babies. And I, just wasn't sure, but, didn't have any issues, and ended up with a honeymoon baby. And so I think did you have the baby announcement? Is that what I'm looking at?
Yes. So here's where who's our special guest going to be?
So our new addition to our family, Lil Junior.
AKA.
Pregnant. Yes. Yeah, we're pregnant.
So yeah, we announced it a little too early because I was excited.
We were talking like, aren't we supposed to wait longer? I didn't know why people waited.
I was like, I'm not gonna miscarry.
I'm like, I didn't know about, because as far as I know, my mom never miscarried. I thought miscarriages were like something from the, pioneer days. Like those were like really rare.
No.
I remember having the conversation like, aren't we supposed to wait longer?
Yeah, and I was like,
I didn't know why. No one explained why you're supposed to wait.
I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be totally fine. Like it's not a big deal. Like we're not going to miscarry. And
well, I don't think you even told me that was why people waited.
I still remember like when we announced that to my family, because we told your family first because they were physically there, so it was kind of we showed them and then did a video call. And I remember that was the first time I noticed my mom was visibly upset. I could tell she was upset that she wasn't in on the news first. And that was when I was beginning to like kind of piece together, okay, is this going to be a problem? Okay. So in between, you know, learning I was pregnant and all of that, I'm receiving phone calls from siblings who are calling me up upset because me getting married had, yeah, exactly. You don't know what you don't know. That is, yes. Well, I knew miscarriage was a possibility because my mom had 7 of them.
I didn't know anyone who had a miscarriage.
So
I don't think so.
I knew that miscarriage was a possibility, and I knew, you know, that was one reason why we kind of didn't talk about it. I was really excited, and I was unabashedly very hopeful and just like stubbornly hopeful, actually, because it was like,
it didn't even enter my mind that was a possibility.
We're not going to miscarry.
That I remember. Maybe I'm misremembering.
I don't know. So yeah, so I'm getting these phone calls from my siblings saying, hey, it's thanks to you, it's really depressing around here. It's really dark around here. Mom cries every day. She wakes up and cries. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like,
what did we do?
What did I do that was so bad? I mean, I know I moved 1,000 miles away, and like, I think I tried talking to her just a little bit, but I was like, honestly, after everything that I just went through, I need a break. I need a tiny break because that was a lot. I just wanted a reprieve. So I think it was towards the end of around June. I was 11 weeks, and that's when I miscarried. And that, it was interesting because like, I kind of was like, oh, this weirdly, like, I just knew I'm miscarrying. Like, I know the pain felt familiar in some odd way.
You're going to share that?
And not on this one.
Oh, okay.
Not on this one. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just stating how I remember things being at the time. I just knew the pain that I felt in the middle of the night.
No guarantee people will watch the other ones.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm not putting that piece in there tonight.
Okay.
So yeah, sure enough, miscarried the little junior. We ended up naming him Noah, and then he came out whole.
That was really
so that was very devastating. That was very devastating. That was very traumatic because I asked you because I was like, we cannot flush our baby down the toilet.
Cool, because that's where you pass.
Because that's where, I passed. The baby was into the toilet. And, so you basically fished him out, and
so bad.
I know it sounds so bad, but I was blown away, like how developed an 11-week-old baby was. And I was stunned because I was like, whoa.
Yeah, it looked just like a little baby. Arms and legs, everything.
Arms and legs and everything. And I was like,
little head.
I had grown up pro-life and everything, but I had not really seen like images of babies at that stage. I had no idea a frame of reference. And it was very shocking. Very shocking. And it really, it was a blow for sure. And I was like, wow, wasn't expecting that. So we ended up having a little like funeral service, like privately, and a lot of tears. But I was like, well, I was consoled by the fact that, I do believe in heaven, and I believe that he was, there with Jesus. And I don't remember if we gave him a middle name or not. I know I named him Noah. It's like, I just had this feeling it was a boy. So, that was pretty rough. That was pretty rough, first few.
Had to mourn for a while.
Yeah, had to mourn
pretty
for. Yeah. So the way I mourned, which I didn't realize was too much of a problem, was eating. eat my feelings. I was like, Reagan, go to the store and get me some stuff. You're like, okay. And then we just kind of like I took some time, and then I didn't have the time to find the letter. Maybe it's better, but my mother hand wrote me a letter for my birthday.
Which is July 10th.
July 10th. Yeah, actually 3 days from now. So she wrote me a letter basically saying she was sorry for messaging Reagan because she thought that's why I wasn't like really talking to her. There was so much in that letter that like, I wish I could find it, but it was very manipulative, and it was very like, I was like, this is so weird. What the heck is this?
You weren't talking to her because you just gotten married and were.
Yeah, I just gotten married, and like I said, I had been through a lot.
She kind of abused you.
Yeah, she really did. She really did. And I was just like, I just wanted a reprieve. So then for her birthday, which was August 3rd. Yeah, that's the ambush. We go up to Indiana, and for her birthday, we celebrate her birthday. And then she decides, we're like, okay, so we're not gonna, we're trying not to, have any conflicts or anything. We're like, let's just make this a nice visit, Well, she decides she wants to have a private conversation with us in the camper trailer. And so we're like, okay. And so she starts unloading a whole bunch of stuff.
No warning.
No warning. No warning. No, like, hey, here's what I would like to talk about. Just like, hey, I want to talk to you.
We're really caught off guard. We're like,
so caught off guard. And then I find myself accepting responsibility for her wanting to cut herself and for her wanting to commit suicide. And
that's what she was chewing us out for.
I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't have any of these terms. So
we still don't know what we did
what was happening.
Getting married.
So I didn't have any explanation for any of what was going on. And so I felt completely crazy. And so I was like, I guess I could, I ended up apologizing for a whole bunch of stuff. And you were like, wait, you weren't going to apologize. What's happening right now? And I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me right now. I don't know why I feel this compulsion to apologize and just be like, oh, I'm going to try to do better. I'll be better. I'll start talking again. And so sure enough, we have, that's when our Facebook group between the three of us began. And then over the course of that, she proceeded to, bring up, Haley didn't spend enough time around Reagan while she was with the family. So she could have,
we're already married now.
Lied to him about who she was, and he doesn't even know who she is. Like, really? And I was like, what the bleep is
Sounds
this?
like maybe she knows something we don't know after all.
And Reagan, like, his response was, our marriage has been really great so far. Like, I don't have any complaints.
What was that?
It's a Facebook message. It's like earlier on, one of the in our group message. So then about that time, like, I got pregnant with Asher later in August, and then I was, I think, 11 weeks pregnant with him when we were on a business weekend in Orlando when Hurricane Irma hit. And this was my first hurricane. Well, no, actually not technically, because there was Hurricane Matthew the previous year, but that wasn't really a big thing. Hurricane Irma was a category 5.
They were talking about being the strongest hurricane in history.
And it went right over like the eye of our, like, where we lived. Thankfully we weren't there.
We were staying in a pretty nice hotel.
Yeah, we were in a very nice hotel, but it was freaky. Oh my gosh, the wind between the buildings just sounded like, oh, it was the creepiest thing ever. And I was so terrified. And then that was really interesting because, like, everybody lost power. Like, there was, like, no one could get food. And so there were people milling about the streets looking for food. And because they're like, we're running out of food. We don't know when things are gonna, open. And so I was like, I need to eat because I'm pregnant.
Yeah,
so
right. We're out of, I forgot there's no food.
So that was pretty interesting. And then like, if you don't have electricity in Florida, it can be really bad because you have no air conditioning.
You can't be inside.
And you can't be in the house because it's way too hot. And I was pregnant. So I couldn't I couldn't be without air conditioning because pregnant women and no air conditioning is a recipe for disaster and can actually lead to some pretty serious harm to the baby. So we ended up staying in like we were driving back and stayed in this one hotel that we're like, okay, there's this part of the state has electricity, so this will be fine. And so we stayed a few nights there. And that's kind of when you started introducing me into like psychological thrillers. I remember us watching that one, and I was like, maybe this might have been a bad idea. I don't know why I like watching them while I'm pregnant. I was like, that was a bad idea. So anyway, so then we couldn't stay at our house because there was still no air conditioning. So we went and stayed with his grandparents for I think like 5 days. And so that was an interesting, like being, displaced for 2 weeks total. And
yeah, this is what we returned home to. It wasn't as bad as
it was.
Other
oh
people,
my gosh,
our
place was spared.
Missing
like,
some shingles and some branches down. So.
It was. I mean, the no power thing was the biggest thing, and so yeah. So then along the way, as I'm. Let's see. I can't remember if the Purity book came before or after Asher was born. I think it was after.
I know you had a bunch of the love bombing stuff in here.
Oh yeah, I was gonna do the first holidays. Yeah, that's right. I was gonna mention that because I feel like that's kind of important. Can you scroll up just a little bit? So yeah, so I wasn't sure, like. At this point, things between the family was still strained, and so they weren't really talking a whole lot. And so
you were talking to like 1 or 2 siblings. Like
I was talking to 1 or 2 siblings once a week. Yeah, I had phone calls, but like around Christmas time and everything, like holidays, first holidays, I was like, I feel a little, I don't know what's going on, and as I have walked further and further away from an enmeshed family, it has honestly felt a lot like withdrawal symptoms that drug addicts talk about. It feels like your brain's on drugs. And so I actually looked into this a little bit, and there are reasons why people feel this way. So it's a lot of it has to do with love bombing. Do you have, where's that at? So yeah, so this is pretty typical with more so with narcissistic relationships, but it can be within enmeshed, like the narcissism and enmeshment is all kind of tied together. So yeah, so love bombing is a form of psychological and emotional abuse that involves a person going above and beyond for you in an effort to manipulate you into a relationship with them. It looks different for every person, but it usually involves some form of excessive flattery and praise, over communication of their feelings for you, showering you with unneeded, unwanted gifts, early and intense talks about your future together. And so one thing I noticed was that the minute I left home, my mother's language toward me began to change just a bit. She was very, very sweet, too sweet. And this is something me and my other siblings have talked about, how this, like the baby girl. She'd never called me that before. She was like very, very nice. And I'm like, where was this? What is this, and where did this go? So love bombing is usually driven by a person's insecurities, inability to trust, and dependence on other people. Although anyone can do it, love bombing is most often associated with people who have an anxious or insecure attachment style or narcissistic personality disorder, which I have stated in previous videos that I believe my mother has undiagnosed narcissistic personality disorder. So people can also pick up on this behavior by learning it from their parents, like passive aggression, or from past abusive relationships. It can also be a side effect of unresolved childhood trauma, though this isn't always the case. And like, this is my family described right here. Everything here. Was there anything else?
No, I don't think so.
To that? Okay. So that's kind of what was going on. Was there was these, I had been, other people have talked about this on like, it's not as commonly talked about, but it's on like forums and stuff where people are like, hey, did you feel like you were experiencing withdrawal symptoms when you went no contact? And it's because of your brain gets a hit of dopamine and oxytocin and another bunch of chemicals in your brain that feels rewarding when you are with these people, because your brain has been trained to behave this way. You've been conditioned, you've been brainwashed in a way. So when you take away that supply, basically for yourself,
it's like a survival type thing. Like you're trained, so you need to fit in with the rest of the tribe.
Yeah.
Kind of survive.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of thing.
Don't want to be an outcast because that diminishes your.
Right. Oh, don't want to be in a black sheep. So that was kind of, I experienced this like with these like withdrawal symptoms, and it's been very weird, like thinking of it in those terms, because I've never done drugs, but I'm like, this feels like I'm craving something. And I've seen it with other siblings where the pull was too strong and they got sucked back in.
Right. They'll be like on our side, remembering abuse that's happened to them, wanting to speak out, wanting to get help. And then the next thing we know, they're back on Cheryl's side and
slandering us
or threatening to sue us. Which we'll talk about later this week.
Yeah. Friday, right? So went through the holidays, and of course, everything was fun. I did gain a lot of weight, which I didn't understand like at the time why I was gaining so much, because I didn't have a healthy relationship with food to begin with, but then also I discovered I had after the fact that MTHFR gene, which if you take like folic acid or a regular folate, then it can cause your body to retain like inflammation, and it can, like, I blew up like a balloon. I was like, what the heck is this? That was not fun. So then let's see. I was teaching music lessons up until the week before Asher was born. We had our little students recital, and he surprised us by coming 2 weeks early, which is not supposed to happen.
With your first one.
My midwife was like, yeah, you're not going to have the baby this week. And I was like, watch me.
She didn't believe you.
I was like, watch me.
You said you were in labor.
And I was like, Asher's time to come out now. I'm done. Let's go. So yeah, we were still putting away meals in the fridge and everything. And then, he was, let's see, what did we watch that night? We watched Seinfeld while I was in labor. And then, I didn't know what to expect labor wise.
So you're having a home birth.
Yeah, I had a home birth. That's right. Yeah. And that was a good birth. That was a beautiful, everything went normally. And then I noticed after I had him, I remember just like 3 days after I had him, I was crying. And I was like, I can't stop crying. I'm like, I don't know how to stop crying. I don't know if you remember this, but I remember you walking in and I was just like sobbing, and I'm like, I feel totally wacky and I feel like something's wrong with me. And I ended up with postpartum depression. And I was pretty heavily in denial about that one. It's the only one I've had postpartum depression with. And then 2 months after Asher was born, I noticed that it took me a lot longer than I thought it would to recover. And then I had my first, I thought at this point in time, I still thought they were fainting spells, but now I know they were the seizures. And I was like, oh snap, my Lyme disease came back. So actually what can happen is after major life events, for women, especially like giving birth, if you have any trauma that has not been dealt with, it can after these major life events. Are you going to throw a little fit the entire time? Is that what you're going to do?
Are you just wanting to go to sleep?
Come on. Okay. There you go. So, I have a 2-month-old, and now suddenly I'm incapacitated again. I'm like, oh snap, I can't do a whole lot anymore. And my symptoms came, like, they hit pretty hard, pretty quickly. And I was again feeling like I couldn't do anything. And so yeah, I was barely able to do anything for about a year because I wanted to breastfeed. So I couldn't do the Lyme program until I was like, I want to give it at least a year.
Which you outlined in a previous episode what the Lyme program was.
Yes. Well, I thought I knew what the Lyme program was, but I'll get to that in a second. Can you go back to the script real quick? Do I have anything I was gonna highlight? Okay, no, I know what I'm doing. Okay. So yeah, it was rough. It was rough for the both of us. We basically went to like eating like one meal a day because I couldn't really cook. It was like a struggle. So it's like all I could really do was like take care of Asher. And like I would have good days and I would have bad days. So there were days where I could do things and then there were days I really couldn't do things. So it wasn't like a consistent, like I was down. But I do remember in the October, 2 of my sisters came down to visit as a birthday surprise for one of my sisters. And while they were there, like, you had to help me go to the bathroom because I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't get there without like collapsing. And it was really difficult. It was really difficult. Rough first couple of years of marriage.
Oh, yeah.
It's been really rough. last 8 years have been really rough.
The last 8 years of marriage have been rough.
Yeah, last 8 years.
Not our marriage again, our life.
Yeah, life.
Our life really hard.
The life got extremely hard. And one thing I noticed was I didn't really want to be in church. And I felt really guilty for that.
You're pagan.
And in the beginning, you were working. We would go to church together at the church that you worked at. You ran sound.
Church, yeah.
And then we didn't have air conditioning in our red car. So
because it's from 1992.
So I was like, you know what? I'm okay with staying home, and I liked staying home. And I realized after I got married, I'm actually more of an introvert. What the heck is going on?
Joke's on your family because your pastor had to do a whole interrogation of me to make sure I was going to a church before we got married, and that was a church that had the proper doctrine. And then we get married, and then you stop going to church.
I stopped going to church, and then we visited.
Should have forced you to go to church. That's what a good Christian husband would have done.
And I remember my mom messaging me at one point, and she was like, I'm really worried about your relationship with God. I feel like you have let it go, and being married has made you not as, close with God. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't want to anymore. And it was kind of weird. I felt like I'd used God to get married. Which sounds weird to say, but I was like, I got married. What do I need God for? Like, I remember having that thought like one time.
That marriage was the finish line for your family.
Yes, it was.
Your whole life about getting married.
Was.
And now once you now what? Yeah. You're married now. Now what? That's the end. Game over. Game over. I won.
Thanks, God. But I also had this fear that God was gonna take my husband and like I wasn't going to be able to have anything good in my life, and that he would use it to refine me because,
that's part of the theology you're raised on.
Yes, exactly. That was part of the theology I was raised on, that suffering is for our good, and how we suffer is God takes things away from you, just like he did with Job.
Even though it wasn't God that took things away from Job, it was Satan.
Exactly.
God actually restored everything to Job and then doubled
Give
it.
him more. Yeah.
So he got all his children who died back, and plus he got more children, and he got everything else doubled. So
yeah, so it was, yeah, that was interesting, my relationship with God, because I felt all confused, and I had so much guilt because I was like, I'm not reading my Bible every day. I don't feel like reading my Bible every day. I don't eat, like, I would do studies. I would do Bible studies. Like, we tried to do Bible studies together.
Bible studies were actually hurting our marriage. Like, we were doing a marriage one. We're like, this is bad. We're not. I vetoed that. We stopped doing that.
Yeah, because
like,
I was
no more Bible
drumming
studies.
up. It was like, because like me, I had to be like super, super deeply honest. I'm like, well, I've had one thought, and you're like, I don't like this. Like,
it's like hunting for problems that don't exist.
Yeah, hunting. That's what it did. It did feel that way. So in this, Reagan's mom had the idea to invite one of my sisters to come stay with us to help out.
Oh no.
With my Lyme disease.
Going into this.
I was just bringing this up because it kind of like talking with her actually brought up things that I had forgotten about. And I had begun, I forgot to find the title for this. I read this book. Now, I had been raised to believe that I was not in the purity culture. So for me to even suggest that I was in the purity culture was felt a little bit bad. Because how dare I say that we were in something that we were clearly not in. But I got curious, and curiosity can be a good thing and it can be a dangerous thing. So
it can be both.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, good and dangerous. Let me see if I can find the book. Culture book. What was it? I think it was by someone named Linda. Pure. Yes.
Oh, it's just called Pure.
It's called Pure. By Linda K. Klein. And it's inside the evangelical movement that shamed a generation of young women. Klein. And how I broke free. KaykleinEin. So this woman basically, she kind of EIN.
Oh, okay. I heard Y in there. What?
KAY. Her middle name is KAY.
Oh, okay.
K. Yeah, that one's confusing. No. So she had a really good approach to this. Like at first I kind of mocked her, and I was like, oh, like she's saying this happened and this happened. And then, so as I'm reading the book, and then I'm talking to my sister about it, and then we're exchanging, memories and things and I'm like, hey, do you remember this happening? And do you remember how this was like, because when you're out of something and then you're like, am I remembering wrong? Is this an incorrect memory? Like, did I just make something up? Did I just fabricate something? So having someone to validate the history that you shared and the things that you went through was very, very valuable at this time. So that kind of woke me up to realizing that, yes, I'd been in the purity culture. Yes, it had affected me deeply. Yes, I still had issues because, like, for me to go out and dressing, oh my gosh, putting clothes on was so exhausting. I love clothes, but at the same time, I was in so much fear that I was going to cause some guy some problem somewhere, and it was going to be my fault. And I still held on to this belief. Like, that belief, like, just had a really deep hold on me. And it was so oppressive and so exhausting. And as I'm reading this book, I start to get more memories of, like, different things that we had to do, like the modesty checks in front of our dad, and feeling responsible for our brothers being attracted to us and our dad being attracted to us, and being held responsible for all the other men around us having lust issues and all these kinds of things that you shouldn't be putting on young women, young children. Like, if you're having a problem with how a 12-year-old is dressed, you have a problem, not the child.
Yeah.
Like, that's serious. That's a serious thing. And yet in this culture,
you're outing yourself.
oh my gosh, you were seriously outing yourself. Like, and if you're watching this and this is someone that is, you find yourself in this situation, hey, there's love, grace, and compassion, but get some help. Because it's not okay to be attracted to a 12-year-old and you're an adult man. And to blame a 13-year-old for her bra strap showing, like, that's weird. And that's icky. That's not okay. So it's just like, being awakened to this idea that, hey, something's off. This wasn't right. And then that led to conversations between me and Reagan. And we had like talks about, you were like, I'm okay with you wearing pants. And I'm like, wait, seriously? Like, you don't have a problem with me wearing pants? I was like, yeah, no, what? And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of new. So
It always sounds funny when people phrase it that way.
What?
Because it always sounds, it's like wearing pants versus not wearing pants. It's like, yes, you should wear something.
Wearing pants versus wearing a dress.
Yeah, I know. But whenever people, it just sounds weird.
That's a good point. It does sound weird. The other thing, I forgot to mention this. The other thing that was very shocking to me when I got married was submission. What I thought submission was, what my expectation for how a submissive wife I was going to be. Basically, I thought I was going to be a doormat. And I was okay with that. Like, that's what I thought submission was.
What you're supposed to do.
That's what I thought I was supposed to do, until you were like, no, I'd like you to have an opinion, and I'd like for you to weigh on decisions and stuff. And I was like, kind of panicked, because I'm like, this was not what I expected. And you're like, it's not submission if I have to force you to follow me. You're like, that's not inherently submission.
That's subjugation.
And I'm like, hold on. You are turning my world upside down again, over and over and over. Like, my world just keeps getting flipped upside down. And I'm just like, I don't know which way is up. I don't know which way is left, which way is right. I am completely lost. And boy, was it about to get messed up again. So all of that was going on, and my Lyme symptoms were getting worse, to the point where I had some pretty serious issues. Like, it affected my brain this time around, like, really hard. And I thought it was just the Lyme, but it was compounded by the fact that I was finally in a safe place. And my brain was like, hey, you're starting to feel safe, so we're going to start letting things out. And my brain wasn't reconciling that there were things that I needed to acknowledge, and yet my body was feeling it. So this is well documented that if you have repressed trauma, if you have trauma that you have not dealt with, that has not been acknowledged, even by yourself, it will affect your body, and you can ignore it. But at some point, your body is going to hand you the bill and say, pay up. It's time. And that's kind of what happened.
Because that's what some people come back at you with, like, why would you want to remember? Like, stop trying to remember.
Yeah, why would you want to remember the pain? Like, why?
It's like telling someone.
Maybe not everything is necessary. Maybe not all the memories are necessary.
But it's kind of like telling someone.
But some of them are.
It's kind of like telling someone with a bullet wound, like, stop looking at the bullet wound. It's just going to remind you that you were shot.
Yeah, it's like,
no, you gotta. If you want to heal it and treat it, you gotta examine it and then clean it out, which might cause more pain temporarily before you can actually deal with it. But if you just ignore the wound, it's gonna fester.
Exactly. And it's something that a lot of it's hard to acknowledge that you got issues. But you would frequently ask, you're like, how are you not more messed up? And me just living in denial.
As I learned about the stuff that was done to you.
Yeah. As I, me being in denial, so heavily normal. In denial. I was just in denial, and I minimized a ton of it. And I was like, I guess I just, didn't let it affect me. And I didn't know how wrong I was. Because when you use coping mechanisms like denial, which I didn't even know that was a coping mechanism until recently, but denial is a coping mechanism, and minimization, forgetting it, like which all of those things.
What almost everyone else in your family is doing now is denying stuff that happened or minimizing it. Like, there was a family meeting that was recorded, and in it they're talking about all the stuff that's going on in the family, all the abuse that's going on, and then at the end they're like, well, at least we're not like this one family down south somewhere who the daughter recorded the father beating up one of the family members and throwing babies across the house. Like, at least we're not that. Like, that's real abuse, basically.
Oh my gosh. That's real abuse. What we went through that wasn't real abuse. Yeah, see right there, exactly.
That's been the most mind-boggling thing to me. It's like, do you guys think like molestation and rape's okay? Because like you all know this has gone on and no one's doing anything about it.
Oh, I forgot to weave in. Just when I realized I'd been physically abused, which that one's taken me, like the abuse from the parents has taken a while for me to acknowledge and come to terms with, because when you are in a life or death situation where the caretaker is harming you and you're young, okay, I started getting spanked when I was 2. I was 2 years old when this started happening. So I didn't have much of a frame of reference for not being spanked and being spanked.
I'm gonna give a quick recap of what spanking is in your household for people that don't know.
That's a good idea. So I'll tell it the way that I told you. So we were pregnant with Asher, and we were kind of discussing like how we would discipline, topics you should, how are we going to approach, being parents, talking through, this is the way this is our way of doing things. We would talk to death every situation, every scenario, everything. And so I was like, I don't know that I want to do spanking. And you're like, well, my parents did spanking and I think it was fine. I'm like, well, how are you spanked? So you detailed, I was like, for serious things. Mm-hmm. And it was like once or 2 spankings mm-hmm. in one thing. And I'm like, that's a spanking? And you're like, and you just kind of got this like concern. And you're like, okay, how are you spanked? And so I don't know why I remember feeling like sick to my stomach actually saying this out loud. And
yeah, I heard lots of conversations about spanking when I was in your family's home. No one ever described how it went down.
No. Mm-mm. Why would we? We all knew what it entailed. Why would we recount again? And we also like felt like there was no
we also have your other siblings talking about describing it, so we can play that clip too.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, this is your first time hearing this. Mm-hmm. We're like year 1 in our marriage, like almost 1 year total, like. And this is the first time that you were hearing this. We've had like a 7-month engagement. Mm-hmm. You were blown away. You were mm-hmm. like, what the heck? So I'm like, well, they would take us into the bathroom. They would lock the door. And you're just kind of like,
lock the door.
You're like, why would they lock the door?
What are they hiding? Now we know, which we haven't even shared yet. What else?
I said, well, they would make us bend over and we would strip down from the waist down. So we were naked from the waist down. And then we were made to bend over and hold our ankles. And then they would give us 10 whacks. But if we let go of our ankles, then they would start the count all over again. So if you moved, you flinched, you let go even just a hair, then you would have to start all over again. And sometimes you could get like 50 to 70 whacks. That's what I remembered.
Well, you remembered more like 30 to 50.
Yeah, it was more like 30
another
to
sibling
50.
said she got up to 70, because obviously it depends on whether or not you're letting go of your ankles, how many you're getting.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
Do you want to say what else happened during this?
Not yet. Okay. We're saving that for Saturday.
Okay.
So, because I'm telling you what I remembered.
Yeah.
We're
going chronologically.
We're going chronologically. This is just what I remembered in that moment. And you were absolutely horrified. And you were like, you were physically abused. And you're mm-hmm. like, I think that counts as sexual abuse too. And I was like shutting that part down real quick, because I was like, no way. No way was I sexually abused by my parents. No way. And you did, and that maybe physically abused.
That was up until you're like 13.
Up until I was 13. Yes, for me.
Yeah, I don't see how you can do that to your child unless you enjoy it. That's the only way you could bring yourself to hit a child that many times when they're bent over like that in front of you.
So yeah, you were very quick to be like, we are not doing that with our kids. You're like,
Mhm.
when I say spanking, you're like, that's not a spanking, Haley. That's not a spanking. He's like, you were physically abused. And I was just like, I couldn't accept it because I'm like, no. And like I had started to maybe like consider the possibility that I could have been verbally abused. Maybe verbally abused, because my Pinterest had brought up 10 signs the way you know you've been verbally abused. And I was like, felt really guilty for clicking on it and reading it and being like, oh yeah, I have all the signs. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know what to do with this, but like
No one cares about that.
to
No one
acknowledge
cares about
that
emotional abuse or verbal abuse.
it should be considered just as bad as anything abusive is just as bad. I don't care on what level it is.
I know.
I don't care on what level you get it. Abuse is abuse, and
No,
it affects your body. It affects your spirit and your soul, and that, like, honestly,
Also, when
physical abuse is a lot easier to heal emotional abuse.
When it's sustained for years and years in the home, like that's, I mean, people make a big deal over bullies at school or online bullying kids to commit suicide. Well, what about if it's from their parents and it's for years and you can't get away from it?
Well, then you get dissociative amnesia, you get complex PTSD, you get a whole bunch of hell. That's what you get.
But we really haven't shared much of the verbal abuse too much, or emotional abuse too much. I mean, a little bit, but not very much, just because we know most people don't take that very seriously. So we're just hitting the big stuff. And the big stuff took 18 plus episodes.
So were you going to play a clip?
Yeah, so if you think Haley's making it up, here's all her other siblings confirming it. And this was really interesting because you'll hear one of your brothers try to say, no, these weren't beatings, these were just spankings. But then another sibling steps in and describes, no, here's what they were. And you can hear it dawn on him in real time that he was abused, and he had never realized that before. And later on in the call, which you don't have in this clip, but later on that meeting, he says, like, thanks for saying that to his sisters, for pointing out that was actually beating. He's like, I think I've been blind to some things. So
yeah,
that was hard. But this is a really just such a powerful and eye-opening clip, because it just illustrates and why they wanted to sue us to not use these clips, even though everyone knew they were being recorded. It was mentioned several times. Everyone knew they were being recorded, and this was voluntarily sent to us. So everyone consented to this recording and we're
covered legally. We know that now. Don't just take my word for it. Michael Johnson, their pastor, agrees that physical abuse took place.
We all need to be careful as well.
So I'll pause and give clarification. So most of this meeting was discussing the allegations that I made in my video to Terry. And here is saying that that I was too harsh when I described them as beatings, that they were actually spankings. And that's the context here.
Because watching Reagan's video and hearing every time one of the kids got spanked, it was replaced with the word beat, and they were beaten for it. Yes, there was some. I mean,
one quick thing. So whenever whenever kids were spanked in our home, the rule was you had to hold your ankles.
Okay.
Hands down. Hold your
hands down.
Hands on your ankles.
Hands on your ankles.
Yes. And if you and it was 10 whacks, but if you let go, they would start over. That hurts. You could get upwards 50 to 70 whacks per thing.
Hand
if
belt
you
or PD.
Yes.
Pardon?
With a hand, a belt, or a PD pipe.
Yeah.
Whatever it's about.
So that's what we mean by beating. That's not a spanking anymore. That's you
No,
go too
no,
far.
that would not. I would agree. That's not a spanking. Okay.
No.
So.
And there were just times we would just have to block out what's going on in the bathroom because the kid's just screaming and you can't do anything about it. So that's what we mean by beating. Whenever that word gets used, that is what we mean.
Did you experience that? Did you get that?
Yeah.
Is that how you remember it? Hold your ankles. If you turn loose, you're gonna get more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think every parent at some point has probably spanked in anger. Instead of taking a step back, we try to send our boys to the room, and then we cool off, and then we go talk to them about the infraction, why they need the discipline, and then we would apply it in a measured way. Okay. So I can't say that's not appropriate. I mean, if the infraction is that bad, it's time to get some help. It's time to get some help. Okay, it's time to get some help.
So, yeah, he's also saying that the infraction is that bad. Well, one of the infractions that was so bad was you guys were playing hide and seek or something, or playing in the laundry. One of your siblings was
playing hide and seek. Both of us were playing hide and seek in the laundry basket.
And you weren't supposed to play in the laundry basket. So that's the kind of just any kind of disobedience. So he totally missed
foolishness.
Or foolishness.
Okay? We didn't even cover that one.
No.
I don't even think we talked about this. Just being overly silly.
I totally forgot about that. We're going to talk about that on the drive when I flew up to propose to you. I drove down with your family to Florida from Indiana. And at one point in the back, your one sister is complaining about her brother, saying, he's being foolish. Spank him.
Yep.
Just for being silly. Mm-hmm. So you guys just got spanked for being silly. And I was like, I don't know. I was really disturbed by that, but I guess if you think you have this picture in your mind that's just such a
when
nice
you're presented
family,
with these two different dichotomies, you're not sure which one is true.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who is who. You don't know what. Is this family this way or this way? And that's why it was so hard to untangle all of this, because my brain had been told and convinced, nope, you had a loving childhood. Mm-hmm. You were loved. You were fine. Everything was okay.
Also, he's like, if you turn loose, if you just accidentally let go of your ankles, not turn loose, not some horrible infraction that they're not beating you in anger. It's the
difference between here and here. That's it.
Right. And they weren't spanking you in anger like he thinks that they're doing. No, there were separate times. There were separate times.
It was basically spanked in anger.
It was basically battery, like hitting you with a metal spatula anywhere on your body.
Yes.
And that was a separate thing. No, these were your regularly scheduled beatings for any kind of disobedience.
Yeah.
So he totally intentionally misunderstood exactly what they were saying.
Yeah. So understanding this was all I was trying to make sense of this, and that's why I just thought it was Lyme disease. I didn't realize it was trauma, even though I stated in another episode that Dr. Lyme was like, no, you've been abused, and he was just trying so hard to help me understand I'd been abused, and that was one of the reasons why this was so bad, because I cannot tell you how many times over and over and over that man said, look, you can live with Lyme disease and you shouldn't be existing like this. This isn't normal, that other people do it, and you don't have to be super healthy, super healthy to live with Lyme disease. So he was trying every which way, and it just wasn't computing. So I think around, let's see, so we had planned, when Asher turned 12 months, I was going to go on, do the Lyme program that I had done before, because I was like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to do it. So yeah, spring of 2019, I have a plan in place. I've mapped out, I'm going to make all my meals. Once Asher was weaned, then we will go ahead and start the program, so that we can kick it in the bud. Because I think I have a journal entry. Do you have the journal entry? Where's that located? This little there. Yeah, that one. So on April 16th, 2019, I wrote, my writing may not make sense as my symptoms worsen and my brain is altered. Scary. To know that my brain is impaired, my hearing, my vision, even my speech is impaired, all from a single tick bite. Crazy, no? I'm like, oh, I'm so naive and so in denial. So we had, ordered a whole bunch of stuff.
Spent over $10,000.
Total.
Just trying to treat
in total, yeah. Between all the supplements, all the special food, I could only have glass containers. There was a whole bunch of steps.
You weren't exactly wealthy either.
No, but that's how much you were willing to invest and get me better. Because at this point in time, I was in a wheelchair. I had to be in a wheelchair again because I couldn't go anywhere without falling down and collapsing. My memory was so bad that we have literally watched TV shows and movies from that point in time that we've been able to watch again later
Like,
because
you
I had
probably don't
no
remember this,
memory.
Well, it was worse than that. I would say something to you, or I would like kiss you.
Yeah.
And then like 5 minutes later, you would like.
Not even 5 minutes. It was like 2 minutes later.
You wouldn't remember.
I'd be like, "Hey, you didn't give me a kiss," and you thankfully you were just like, you start laughing. You're like, "Yes, I did. I did." I'm like, "No, what? No, you didn't."
Maybe my kisses are that forgettable.
No, because it was other things. I would forget complete conversations. My stuttering got really bad. I had a really bad stutter. I would repeat the same two words like over, like I would, and it was like I couldn't get my sentence to start, and then I would be in the middle of a sentence, and I would be like, "Oh, there it's gone. Okay, well, that conversation is over. I can't remember what the heck I was saying anyway." So, and then I wouldn't be able to. It was like it was on the tip of my tongue, like always on the tip of my tongue. I'm like, I know the word I'm looking for. I could never find it. And it was so infuriating. And I was having severe muscle twitches. I was losing muscle function. Like I would just randomly drop things.
It's not good when you have a baby.
No, I was terrified. I was so terrified, which is why I didn't walk around with the baby like at all. Because it was like, oh my gosh, this is horrifying. So I was pretty darn sure that I was going to have to take care of this myself. Like I was convinced that God was going to do this the long way. People around me were like, "Hey, do you even want God to heal you?" And I'm like, well, that's a really offensive thing to say. Obviously God wants me to heal me. Like, I know that.
No.
But
do you think God wants to heal you, or do you want
to be healed?
Okay.
And I reacted like, well, yeah, obviously I want to be healed. Like, but deep down I was like, maybe I don't. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. So there
because a lot of people thought you were just faking it or making it up to get attention.
Yeah, some people didn't believe me, which is so.
That's the hardest part about all this. Your memories, the line, everything. People don't believe you.
People don't believe.
Which is why we show so much evidence and clips of other people backing everything up in all these episodes.
Yeah, because I'm not the only one talking about this. There's
we had your sister Mackenzie on for 2 hours and talk about all the stuff she went. Well, not even all the stuff she went through. Some of the stuff.
No, we didn't even cover everything she went through.
Yeah.
So at this point, we decided to try this healing center in, I don't know if we want to say the city we were in, where we lived, Naples, Florida. And I was really scared
because as Christians, we believe that God can heal. So we're like,
yeah,
go and have some people just pray with us.
I was like, I've had people pray for me before and not a darn thing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
like, why not?
I was like, but at the same time, I was like,
worst case, it doesn't work.
I was weirdly terrified to go.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm like, yeah, why are you so afraid? Well, worst case, it doesn't work, but at least we prayed.
I couldn't tell you. So we go, and at first they didn't want us to sit together because they were afraid that I would be able
They really didn't like me for some reason.
They wouldn't be able to share things in front of you. And I was like, no, I kind of need him. He's my emotional support.
That's like,
person.
Unless they were like worried like I was abusing you or I could have been the cause for.
Yeah, I think that. Well, it's, I mean, to be fair, that happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But
at one point you're crying. I like try to touch your shoulder, and they don't. Like, don't stop me. Like, what? Just
forgot about that. So it was a couple. It was a husband and wife couple who worked together, and they just sat down. They're like, "Why are you here?" And I started going to the story, and then I started to spill out things didn't expect.
We thought we were going to heal you of Lyme disease.
Yeah.
We weren't planning on talking about.
I wasn't planning to talk about the abuse, and they're like, "What's something?" There was a lot of prayer, and they're like, "Let's." What does Jesus want you to share? And I'm like, shut up, Jesus. I don't want to share that. It sounds really disrespectful, but it was like, yeah, I've had a lot of disrespectful thoughts in that manner.
Jesus can handle it.
He can. So this was the first time I'd said out loud to someone other than Reagan. Like, he was the first one I'd ever told anything. It was only one. And so when things are done in secret and you are silenced and you are shamed and you are made to feel like if you ever speak a word, the worst things imaginable will happen to you, then to talk about it is very, very scary, but also can have a liberating effect, because the more you speak about it, the less power it has over you, because what is kept in secret still has the power to control you. And so with limited information that I could give them that I had remembered up to that point, which was just my older sister, and the one time, I thought it was just once.
Turns out it went on for years.
Yeah, I thought it was just once. And then the moment of my dad beating me.
Of your sister raping you.
Yeah, my sister raping me the one time. And then, but I still felt responsible for partaking in that.
Maybe because you were raised in a culture where you had pastors saying stuff like this.
I know this is a quote from Pastor Michael Johnson. I know Reagan made a big deal about children can't consent, but children can say no unless it's a parent and they are in fear.
Reagan made a big issue about children can't consent, but children can say no. Children can say, again, unless it's a parent and they're in fear, but if it's another child.
So I guess they just thought if an older child is raping you or abusing you, it's your responsibility to say no to them.
Yeah.
Even if you have no clue what's going on because you don't even know anything about sex and you're being coerced or you can be in fear from an older child.
Mm-hmm.
So,
absolutely.
But apparently children can consent, I guess, in this culture.
So I felt like it was on me. And so they're walking me through, they're praying over me. And this was our first introduction to people praying in the spirit, or as other people call it, speaking in tongues.
I've never experienced that before.
I'd never experienced it. I didn't know it existed. And they're praying over me, and I'm hearing,
like, what is going on right now? It's like alien language. Like,
it was so weird. It was so weird. And yet I was hearing English phrases.
I did not hear any English, but you heard English.
I was hearing, you are loved. You are precious. You are pure. You are clean. And I felt so weird about talking about, because I'm like, surely I'm making this up. But at one point I'm looking, this man is speaking this weird language. And then I see these very, very kind eyes above this man's head. And I'm like, I'm kind of freaking out at this point because I'm like, this is not what I expected when I walked into this facility. Like, what the heck? No one prepared me for what could be possible. And I truly, genuinely believe that I was looking into the eyes of Jesus, and I felt such love, such compassion, such rage, righteous rage for what had happened to me.
That's another thing that's absent from the Christian community, is not enough rage and anger over evil.
Especially when it comes from a parent's hand, because we want to give excuses. And the excuses need to stop, because all we're doing is causing more harm than good, because parents are held accountable. Everyone is going to give an account for everything they do. And those in authority positions, if you're a parent, you are in a position of authority. We're in positions of authority, and we are held accountable for everything that happens to our kids, everything that we do to our kids.
Yeah.
Yep. Power dynamics can exist regardless of age. Yep. Sometimes it's a younger child abusing an older one. Yep. Exactly. Yes. That's happened too. Someone who gets it.
Now for some comic relief.
So then another thing they did was they prayed over these memories. And I was like, this is new. I was not anticipating this. And as they are, like, I've got my eyes closed, as they're praying over these memories, I felt like Jesus had gone into the room with these memories and had redecorated, had wiped it clean. And I thought, oh, great, that's the end of it. I'm good. Yay! Little did I know that was just the beginning.
Tippity-toppity.
I wasn't healed of Lyme disease, and I was like, yeah, I expected that. I'm gonna have to do this the hard way. Which that was my first mistake. So about this time after that, I did get a hold of Dr. Lyme and was like, hey, do you have any information. At one point, he told me he was going to write a book. And I was like, hey, do you have this book? And so he's like, hey, I have updated and upgraded the program. So now it's a little bit more intense. Boy, was it intense. That was my life for several months, just doing this treatment.
It's like a full-time job.
It was a full-time job. I had to have timers and reminders to take different supplements, to do different. At one point, I just had to go jump on the trampoline a couple of times because that was part of it. Another thing was I had to take certain baths. That was the beginning. And then I had to eat certain foods. And then for 4 weeks, I had to do 2 sauna treatments.
A red light.
Yeah, red infrared sauna. And that was fun. I actually got to go to a spa, and that was my first time ever going to spa. And I'm like dying the first time I get out of the car. But with each time that I did these, I did feel better. Like I was getting my energy back. I was feeling really good. It was working. And about this time, we went to we went to a fall party. I forgot about this. I forgot to include this. It was there that one of the sibling who had abused me was changing our son's diaper.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt weird about it. And I don't think...
we had a discussion, like, we need to keep an eye on our son. One of us needs to keep an eye on him at all times. So that should alone...
That alone should have been a red flag.
Should have told us not to even go.
Yeah, we shouldn't have gone. We shouldn't have gone. I don't think anything happened to Asher.
No.
But I was concerned.
He got whisked out of the room, and we're both keeping an eye on him somehow.
Twice. They're like, oh, I'm just going to do this nice thing and change his diaper for you. And I'm like, why do you have to go somewhere private in the bedroom alone with my son? And so I was like, this was really bothering me. So I was like, hey, look, I'm just going to kindly just say, hey, can you not do that anymore? I'm not really comfortable. And I thought everything was fine until I later learned that that sibling went and basically told everyone that I was throwing that in their face. How dare I?
Throwing it in their face that they had raped you and abused you,
yes.
And now you're
bringing it back up. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I have concerns.
That's a you problem.
I'm in charge of this little child. I'm in charge of protecting their innocence. And you're darn well gonna hear about if I'm uncomfortable about you touching my kid. Okay? That's on me.
Everyone
as
should
a
know.
Parent.
Yeah. Like
everyone.
A lot of people in your family should be put on the sex offender watch list so people know to not take their kids around.
Yes, exactly. Everyone gets that information for a reason. So you can make well-informed decisions. And like every time we went to my parents' house, actually, we always ended up really sick. Mm-hmm. Like we had to leave the fall party pretty earlier than anticipated because we were like gonna throw up and like
splitting
we were
headache,
just so sick,
horrible nausea. Like, and we were fine when we showed up, and then we were fine when we left.
We were fine when we left. Yeah.
And other siblings have kind of said the same thing.
Yes, other siblings have confirmed.
There's just a darkness that surrounds that whole property.
I'm like, man, I forgot how oppressive this felt. So,
because how many people have been raped on that property? Over how many years?
So many.
Physically abused, battered. Unbelievable
stuff. Yeah. So much has occurred. So that was kind of the first time I'd actually like addressed things like that. Earlier before then, a sibling and her husband had come up to visit us, and they informed us that Mom was telling people that she'd never gotten a wedding photo with me. And this was the first time, like, stuff
Do we have that?
I was made aware. I don't even know. I was made aware. It's on my Facebook page.
It's on your Facebook page. Okay.
The photo with her.
Yeah.
It's on my Facebook page. Go search my like Mother's Day.
Okay.
It's in there somewhere.
Album or what?
It should just be in my photos, pictures of me, Haley's photos. Yeah, or photos of Haley. It's somewhere in there. So I was kind of stunned. I was like, what the heck is going on? I know I took a picture with my mother, and she's like, well, that's not what she's telling everybody. So I was like, okay, well, I'll fix it. And so I messaged my mom, and I was like, you have the photos? And she's like, yeah, I have them. And I'm like, I was so confused. I was beyond confused because I was like, I don't even know what happened. I don't know how to explain that one. And then I'd also been informed that my dad had been going around bad mouthing me to his family and telling all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, this was my first time finding out that people are going behind my back, slandering me, telling lies. And I was like, what even is this? So that was my first introduction to all that. Where is the photo? I know it exists. I know it exists.
I've seen it.
It might be in Haley. Like, are you in photos? Haley's photos or photos of Haley? There's a different tab. Oh, there it is. Photos. Go down. There it is. Right there.
Oh yeah, right there.
That's right there. Goes to the top. So anyway, so that was kind of like my first introduction that, before, after I was married, that slander and being called the black sheep.
Well, couldn't people say we're doing the same thing? These videos?
The difference is this is true. What they were saying was they were spreading lies. And I was like, look, say whatever you want behind my back. That's fine. But please tell the truth.
There's a purpose for these videos, just to help, number one, warn other people about
who these people are.
Yeah, and then also
sadly,
to help
I hate
other
to
people.
do that, but at the same time,
no one else is going to do it. So.
No one else is going to do it. So,
yeah. So there you go.
I have proof. And she knew she had it. She said she had all the photos. So
yeah, you texted her the picture like, hey, I heard you didn't have this picture, so here you go. And she's like, I already have that picture.
Yeah, she's like, the photographer already gave me a whole phone drive with all the photos. And I'm like, what the bleep is this? I was so confused. So there was that, dealing with all of that, and then, trying to get, healing with Lyme. And then I'm feeling great. And then surprise, pregnant with Ember. She came along. And so I was like very scared because I had 3 miscarriages prior to this. I'd had a bunch of miscarriages because of how much I thought it was just the Lyme, which that can happen. But it was also just the sheer amount of stress and pain that I was in that I didn't even know. So my body was all out of whack. And I was terrified that I was going to have another miscarriage. So that was a fight. That was a battle. And then in the middle of that, Asher ended up getting scalded with hot tea accidentally, pulled my cup down on him. And so that was a whole thing where he had to go to the hospital because like 20 or I can't remember what percentage of his body was burned. So he had to have like a skin graft surgery, and that deeply affected him.
Mm-hmm.
To the point,
trauma can happen accidentally too.
It can happen accidentally. And if it happens, then it's good to know how to handle a child who's been traumatized. That's another thing, is parents don't know how to handle kids who are traumatized. And I was like, I wasn't sure what I was dealing with in the beginning either. All I knew was that before this injury happened, he was talking and he was fine. And then after, he was only using That's all how he spoke. And I would be like, hey, can you try to say this word? And I would see the wheels turning in his eyes, and he would just give up and he would get really sad. And it was so heartbreaking. So he was, and I discovered later that from reading the book, The Body Keeps the Score, that the younger you are when the trauma happens, the more likely it is to affect the language center of your brain. And that finally clicked into place. And I'm like, that's what happened to Asher. That's why he has trouble speaking. And he doesn't now. He's good now. He's totally good now. It's amazing. But there were things that, handling that, and then I had another home birth with Ember, and I was worried that, oh no, am I going to have my Lyme disease return after having another baby? Because that was another concern. I was like, how healthy did I manage to get? Because I didn't complete this program. I wasn't able to complete it because I got pregnant halfway through. So I was like, hopefully I got myself to a point where I'm going to be okay. And sure enough, I was. I was fine. And then we were about to move into our house here. Did I have anything else after she was born? Is there anything else I could remember? Oh, yeah, that's right. So 2 weeks after she was born, Asher gets bit by a tick, or not a tick, a mosquito. And it looks like he's got a bullseye rash. And I'm like, oh no, you can't be serious. So I messaged the picture of it, to a couple of different professionals who I trusted their opinion on, one of being Dr. Lyman. They're like, yep, that's a bullseye rash. Good catch. So I was like, oh no. So he, poor kid, ended up developing, and some might say, how does a 2-year-old end up with social anxiety? But that kid had social anxiety. We would take him out into places and he would cry and he would scream and he would be terrified and he wouldn't want to go. And then he was scared of his own reflection. There were so many, he had insomnia. He wouldn't go to sleep at night. And then he was sleeping until 10 a.m. And I'm like, I know this. I recognize this. And I was able to easily spot, what was going on with him. So we had him tested at a holistic chiropractic's office. And they're like, yeah, he's testing for a couple of different strains. And then Stephanie's wedding was coming up. So we're like, okay, while we're in Indiana, we'll go see Dr. Lyme to just verify, what's going on with him. We'll get Asher tested, and then we'll go ahead and get ourselves looked at just to make sure that we're okay. So we go, and of course, we're in the middle of, you had bank documents that you were dealing with, trying to move.
Yeah, we're in the middle of buying a house.
We're in the middle of buying our first house.
That was a nightmare.
Oh yeah, this is when the pandemic and everything was going on, which didn't really affect our life that much.
No, I worked from home, so.
The one time it did really affect me was the first time I went shopping and everyone was going around and wearing masks, and I did cry in the car because I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, what is the world? Like, at the time, like, I'm like, this feels really freaky. Like, what kind of dystopian world am I living in?
Dystopian world.
And then the Christmas where we're walking downtown Naples, and they're in hazmat suits.
I know, spraying down the stores.
I'm like, what is happening? This is so weird. So anyway, so we go in October. We're going to Stephanie's wedding, and end up sick again, and we get our blood looked at by Dr. Lyme. And also, my mom and one of my sisters, who had some pretty severe health problems that they couldn't figure out the root of, decided to come get checked out by Dr. Lyme, get their blood looked at the same time. So we're all together getting getting this done. And so he looks at Asher's blood, and he said, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of the spirochete, which is, I've detailed this in the other Lyme episode, like what Lyme is and everything. So I'm not going to go too deep into that. Basically, he confirmed that he had Lyme disease.
It's the shape that the bacteria takes.
Yes.
It's called spirochete.
And so I was like, yeah, we kind of already got him, had this test. And he goes, oh, if he got confirmed on that test combined with this, he for sure has it. So he came up with a little regimen for him, and we followed that regimen, and he got his energy back. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I now have an energetic toddler. What the heck do I do with an energetic toddler? So that was fun. And then I get my blood looked at, and he's like, oh, I see you're dealing with a lot of stress. And we're like, what am I stressed?
Just from looking at your blood.
From looking at my blood, he was like, you have a lot of heavy metals, and you've got some pretty significant stress. So was that spirochete?
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So then he looked at your blood, and he was like freaking out, because he's like, this is the cleanest blood. He's like, I'm gonna have to get nitpicky to say that you have any issues. He's like,
you want to study me?
He did want to study you. It was really funny.
Guess that's what your blood looks like if you haven't been abused or swimming in farm runoff, because then that's why you have the heavy metals.
Yeah, that was another reason.
That was his theory.
So then he looks at my sister's blood. And while my mom and her are out of the room, he asks us, hey.
The only thing was, I did have a really high level of white blood cells.
Yeah, he said, you're fighting off an infection, but and I don't know where it's coming from.
Right, because
I can't pinpoint
if there was an illness, like some bacteria or something, he would have seen that in my blood, but he couldn't see anything. So I guess my body was just, the immune system was reacting to being around in that situation, that environment, I guess.
So much darkness. I
I know.
mean, come on.
Back to your sister.
So he asks us, hey, was she ever sexually abused? And I'm like, yeah, I know of at least one instance. And he's like, because what she's presenting with is due to sexual abuse, is due to abuse. And so
we have a doctor confirming it too.
Yes. And he had confirmed that with me years before, because he's like, look, I've worked with a lot of people. What you're dealing with, sexual abuse is the culprit. So we talked to mom about that, told her what he had said, and he confirmed it with her again. And she was in total denial and continued to take her to doctors, even though she had gotten a diagnosis. She didn't want to accept it. No, it's not because of the sexual abuse. What are you talking about? Again, the denying of reality and the gaslighting, like that couldn't have happened. I don't think so. And that was just the epitome.
Even though at this point, it's who hasn't experienced that in your family.
I don't think there's anybody who's left untouched, to be honest. I don't have confirmation, but I don't think there's any.
Well, this is what your one sister said.
Yeah, as far as the sexual abuse goes, like every single one of us has been touched by it.
So it's not just you.
Not just me. So, all right, can you go back to the script? Just make sure there's not anything I'm forgetting before I get into. Okay. Okay. So about this time, things with my family are pretty tense. I'd already had one falling out. I'm not going to detail that. With one sister, it was really bad. It was really devastating. And there were conversations that took place while we were singing at this one coffee shop. And I remember just wanting to. I was clutching my glass so hard because I was like, don't react, don't say anything. And I wanted to break. I was like, I'm going to break this glass, aren't I? And just being in that environment again was very difficult. It was very oppressive, and I felt just awful, just so awful. And so,
like, why did we even come to this?
Yeah, we're like, why did we? We're like, not doing this anymore. No more. So we move in to our beautiful new house, and I'm like,
Which
okay,
is our current house.
Our current house. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like we're in our own space. We're in our own environment. This is like our home, and
not renting.
We're not renting. This is our home, and so things are starting to settle down. While things settled down around us, things in my brain were not going well. I felt like I was losing my mind. There was just, I felt like my brain was broken is one way I know how to describe it. It was just, things didn't feel right. I think at one point I looked up the symptoms of a mental breakdown or a nervous breakdown, and I'm like, I feel like I'm having one of these and I don't even know why. And I remember at one point you had just said, like, I had just touched your arm, like I can't remember what exactly I had done. But you're like, I don't really, like, it was something I thought you, I think at the point at one time you were just like, I don't like that when I'm trying to do work or something like that. And I perceived it the wrong way. And my brain just felt like, oh no, I just took it all the wrong way. And it sent me into a tailspin, and I felt like my reality was just completely crumbling. And I'm like, what the heck is wrong with me? So Christmas happens, and I get worse around Christmas. Don't know why then.
Now I
know why. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah, your brain doesn't. Yeah, exactly. The way normal people's brains work. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's exactly how my brain felt.
Well, yeah, I mean, trauma, it damages your brain.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
It does damage your brain. It does actually cause physical damage to your brain.
But you can be restored. You can be healed.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. So let's see, it was, what was it? Oh, I have the journal entry. In the middle of this, I started reading Mere Christianity, which for me felt really difficult.
You weren't allowed to read.
I wasn't allowed to read C.S. Lewis growing up. So I thought, hey, I'll just give this a try. And at first it felt like keep crying. It felt like my brain was having a hard time. I felt like trying to comprehend things was really difficult and really slow. And I felt really stupid at the time. And I was like, I'm just going to keep trying to read. I'm just going to keep trying to push through. And eventually I got through to the book. But the one thing that really stood out to me was pride. Like I'd always been told I was like a very prideful person. And anyone who knew me growing up can confirm that I was very prideful, very judgmental. And I felt really convicted about that. And I was like, I was broken over that. But at the same time, I was like, I just want to stop feeling miserable. I just want to stop feeling insane. And so I remember like repenting of that. I remember apologizing to you at one point. I felt like just like this horrible human being for just being so prideful. Like, one thing I had to apologize for was thinking I was better than you in some way. And you were like,
well, you are.
I was like, no, you don't understand. It's like so exaggerated in my brain. It's like really bad. And so then there was a journal entry I wrote. Do you have that? Were you able to put that on a card? Mm-hmm. Let's see, where'd that go? So yeah, December 27th. So 2 days after Christmas, man. I said, I need to write out and come face to face with what has happened to me. It feels so horrible to write it out though, but I must. Acknowledging is the first step. So then I proceeded to write down everything that I knew, everything that I consciously was aware of, all the little different pain points, things that had been traumatic for me.
And she's talking in her sleep.
Are we sure she's just talking in her sleep, or is she calling out for somebody? She's
saying, "Stop it, Asher." I'm gonna check on her.
You want to check on her?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I proceeded to list out everything. Get into the good part while the babies start crying. I write out, list out the way I'd been hurt and all of that. And then I think, I'm at least acknowledging it. I'm actually stating it like this hurt me. I'm no longer denying that this had an effect on my life. Like I need to deal with this. So then on January 9th, I had taken some time by myself to go out in the woods, a little spot behind our house. And I was out there just kind of melting down. And I remember specifically praying, Lord, if there's anything in my heart or my mind that needs to come out, bring it to the surface and let's get it out so I can better reflect you, so I can be normal. I can be a good, a light for you, and I can stop feeling horrible. So then I write, all of the above mentioned things that I mentioned have culminated into PTSD. I thought it was PTSD. I didn't know about complex PTSD at the time. So then I wrote, I can't talk, think, or hear about my family without having a severe panic attack. The physical toll this is having on me is not healthy. I need healing. Reagan instructed me not to have any contact with my family for 30 days. So I am taking January off. So then I think the rest of that, Where's the rest of this? Oh yeah, on another part, I wrote, I will admit that part of me wants to hold on to this. I believe because there is a familiarity to being damaged. Also, I could hold it over my family's head. Look what you have done to me. This is not good. This must be removed. The only way God will heal me is if I want it completely. So this is me letting it all go. And I remember as I was like writing that, I just like fell out of my chair that I was sitting in. It was just like sobbing. And I felt this intense pain in my chest. And like, that was the beginning of me actually acknowledging how painful things had been, putting a name on the fact that I had been abused and that it did affect me. And I was, this was inside of me and I had to deal with it. So that's getting ahead. So Reagan had, so at this point in time, I had been still doing like Marco Polo, so like video calls. It's like a video call app with my family, and then I was in a group chat. It's called Mom's Gang, and
The gang members.
I had, he encouraged me to just put a pause on communication, because anytime I thought about any family member, it didn't matter who they were, what they'd done to me. It didn't matter who you were. I would get so panicked and like my mind would just unravel and I would feel so unsafe. And I was like, I can't do this. So then through the course of not having contact, I started having memories. I remember walking out of
getting
the bedroom
distance
door.
from the perpetrators is a key to actually remembering.
Yes, getting distance and feeling safe. So let's see. I think it was the next journal entry I had where I kind of cover right after this. January 29th. So, 20 days after I had my, like, I'm acknowledging all of the trauma I had. I'm like, I thought my healing was complete. I thought that was all the trauma there was. I found that when the brain and the
Sounds
body...
like a couple weeks ago.
Yes! Oh my gosh! I found that when the brain and the body heal to a certain point, it feels ready to handle past trauma and will let it resurface. This is what has happened. I had also looked at family incest and read one man's account of his older sister raping him, and that was the trigger to unlock the unresolved trauma of my sexual abuse as a child. What I didn't know was that there was so much more. So I distinctly remember.
I might want to skip ahead to something quick.
Okay. What do you want to skip ahead to?
I guess it's this.
Dissociative amnesia.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. So what can happen? I think we've used this term before, dissociative amnesia. And this is when you can't remember important information about yourself. These memories are often distressing or upsetting events. It's most likely to happen with severe or long-term trauma, especially experiencing abuse, neglect, or violence of any kind. This condition is treatable and most people can regain their memories.
So this is a real phenomenon. This is a Cleveland clinic.
Yes.
So this is a real thing that happens, again, when you're experiencing severe long-term trauma, which is exactly what you're experiencing.
Yes.
And your other siblings, which is why they're now starting to remember stuff. Not just making it up out of the blue.
No, to get attention or to just have a great story. Yeah,
there's even a law website that uses that people who have repressed memories of sexual abuse, you can go and sue your abusers. So
yeah, so like the law is getting involved in this and recognizing, like, they have like how if it's just a memory, or if it's just you planting false memories, because that is a thing. Sometimes it's
usually
hard to determine.
From what I've read,
Which is
usually it comes from therapists with an agenda, but you've not met with any therapists.
No, I didn't meet with a therapist. So I have no. And there's been times when there would like, just recently, where I was like, I don't know that memory is mine, and I had doubts.
Because one of your siblings had a memory and thought you were a part of it.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't. It's not.
Meaning you were also
resonating.
Meaning you were also being victimized at the same time.
Yes, but it wasn't resonating with me, and I just had too much doubt about it. So getting the distance, yeah. So I didn't know. It took me a couple of months to find what I actually was dealing with, which is complex PTSD. The difference between complex PTSD and PTSD is from one isolated event. Complex PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, can result from experiencing chronic trauma, such as prolonged child abuse or domestic violence. It's closely related to PTSD and borderline personality disorder. So then CPTSD is manageable with psychotherapy, talk therapy, and medication. So the other thing that I was dealing with, which I did not know they were called somatic memories until recently, until some dear friend was able to give us this definition. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Who was in a community adjacent to yours
Yes.
and experienced similar abuse. But
Yes.
So yeah, so when we talk about you having memories, usually they start off as somatic memories.
Yeah, somatic
which means
memories.
You're experiencing it in your body. You're reliving it.
Yes.
It's not bad enough that you had to experience all that as a child. You had to re-experience getting raped. I have to see that happening in front of me.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it happening.
Yeah. It's pretty horrific.
It's just makes you want to kill people.
Yeah, it does make me want to kill people. So somatic memories, the concept of somatic memory refers to how our bodies hold onto past experiences, particularly those that are traumatic. Unlike explicit memories that are consciously recalled, somatic memories are implicit. They are not recalled as specific events, but manifest as physical sensations and emotional reactions. These memories are often linked to traumatic events and are stored in the body, sometimes leading to physical symptoms and bodily sensations without conscious awareness of the original incident. That's from Trauma Therapist Institute. So common signs of somatic memory include chronic pain, bodily reactions during stressful events, physical symptoms often associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. And then there's somatic flashbacks, which are not traditional memory recollections. Instead, they involve the physical sensations experienced during a past traumatic event. These flashbacks are visceral. The body remembers and reenacts the physical reactions without conscious thought. For instance, an individual might experience rapid breathing, a sudden headache, or a sense of panic reminiscent of the bodily responses from the original traumatic experience. Right,
and you've talked like a little girl, acted like a little girl, it's almost not conscious. It's your body just goes into that mode.
Yeah. It's pretty weird.
And it usually starts with somatic. It's usually physical first, then you get the emotions. Just break down for no reason and
seemingly no reason.
Yeah, and then usually the third phase is you actually remember what happened and you actually see it in your mind.
Yeah. So this type of flashback doesn't necessarily conjure a coherent image of the past, but rather embodies the physical symptoms, sometimes leading to a distressing somatic experience that's difficult to understand or explain, especially if you have no idea what your history is.
Mm-hmm.
If you have no idea this kind of stuff happened to you, then you can be totally unaware. And this is why we have people who get autoimmune diseases or are just diagnosed with fibromyalgia or just diagnosed with all sorts. Oh, you just have chronic pain. What the heck is that? Why? Why are we not getting to the root of this stuff? And if we don't get to the root of this stuff, we're never going to figure it out. And it's why, to some extent, it is important to know what happened to you so that you can get healing.
Otherwise, you're basically going to be crippled your entire life in some way or another. And you accept it as being normal, but it's not.
Which some people choose to live that way, and that's their choice because to deal with it, to acknowledge it is extraordinarily painful. So I didn't have definitions. I didn't know this stuff existed. And I remember walking out of our bedroom and having one of these visceral somatic memories of a rape incident. And I'm freaking out because I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Right. You just thought you were going crazy or something.
I thought I was going crazy. I'm like, surely I must be losing my mind. So I start doing a little research. I start Googling stuff because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who I can talk to. Like, I had severe trust issues. I only trusted you. And it was even hard to talk to you about stuff. So I want to put up the next journal entry. It was thoughts of doing date nights. Did you include that?
Oh, I didn't know that was a journal entry. No, I didn't put that up.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just read it here. So I included on January 29th that thoughts of doing date nights made me feel sick. And this is common, being intimate. If you have sexual abuse in your history, then being romantic with someone, especially someone who's still loving, can completely throw you for a loop. for a loop. We're like, what the heck? So I panicked, fell apart, and we couldn't proceed. Putting Asher to bed, he jumped on my back and sent me into a CPTSD episode. And I felt myself go into a severe panic attack and couldn't move or speak for some time. Like this, I don't even remember how long I was there. Then I told Reagan. We got Asher to bed. Then while trying to get Ember to sleep, we watched funny videos and Reagan could not touch me. You couldn't. Yeah, he couldn't. The thought of him touching me just made me feel panicked, unsafe,
That went on for like weeks.
and like vomiting. Yes. But it wasn't because he did anything to me. It was because what was happening to my body was so when you relive a memory, when your body remembers something traumatic, your body itself has no concept of time. So what happens is it puts you, and especially if this is unprocessed, look, children go through traumatic things all the time. Children who get help in the moment will not deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you need to sit there and worry like, oh my gosh, is my kid going to go through this? No. This is unique to people who have
You were raped.
Unresolved trauma. I was raped. I was beaten. I was
covered
molested.
up. You were told never to talk about it.
There was a whole bunch of stuff that went on. A whole bunch of stuff. And I was just scratching the surface, man. Just what my brain could handle in that moment because it got dark really fast.
Mm-hmm.
So the person who had been safe, my brain now perceives as a threat. Not because he ever did anything to me, but because I couldn't have Asher touch me. My children could not touch me. Because I felt unsafe, because it was young. It was everybody around me felt like a threat.
You tell people that, and then they're like, well, no, shame on you for letting it affect your children.
And I'm like, no shame on me. Shame on the people who perpetrated this crap against me. And it's now affecting my kids. That's not my fault.
If someone hits you with a baseball bat on purpose and breaks your leg, and now you can't serve your children food, are you going to get mad at the person who had their leg broken? And can't serve.
That's a really good analogy. That's a really good analogy.
Don't take this seriously.
No,
no one takes this seriously.
No one takes it seriously. We get very upset because no one takes it seriously. And for those who are in the middle of it, it's very, 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 very difficult when people just shut you down and tell you, well, don't let it control your life. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how to, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Easy for someone to say who's not been through this.
Yes, very easy. So after Ember was asleep, we spent several hours talking through the fragments, sensations, and memories, taking breaks in between to watch funny videos. After several hours, Reagan could finally just touch me. That's all he could do.
Yeah, a lot of it like you would tell me what happened to you.
Joe, thank you,
Joe.
Thank you. Yes, there needs to be more righteous anger about this kind of stuff.
Especially from Christians.
Especially from people who say they're Christians.
Christians should be more angry than anyone.
Because this is a violation, and God does not approve of this in any, or think it's okay. Or
no, it makes God angry.
So
but yeah, you would
the next morning, I recorded feeling like my brain had reset. It literally felt like we were living the Adam Sandler movie, 50 First Dates, because we would get to a point every evening. We did this for a while.
Don't get distracted.
Sorry. It was like my brain would again think, oh no, I'm being threatened. I'm unsafe. because my brain and my body could not remember which time period I was in. Because it felt like I was stuck in the 90s, which, you know, I like nostalgia just as much as everyone, but this was hell nostalgia. Nostalgia hell. Ooh, that's a good song title. So the next day, neither Asher or Reagan could touch me. And this went on for weeks.
Yeah, and you would remember stuff, but then you would feel like you were unlovable and you were dirty and you were.
Yes, the thoughts that had occurred at the time of the trauma and preceding the days of the trauma came back into my mind.
So basically, how we get to the point where I'd be able to just like hold you.
Yeah, because that was it.
I would have to tell you, like, that should never happen to you. That's evil. That's despicable.
Yep.
And you're clean. You're pure. And I'd like.
Well, you have to like drag stuff out of me because I didn't want to talk about it because I felt so dirty. I felt so ashamed. I felt so
you weren't doing anything wrong.
So much shame. But it was like that was what it was like. That's how we processed it. Like when little children have these evil things done to them, especially when they're done to them by their caretakers, they internalize it. They don't blame the caretaker. They blame themselves, because if they're going to be taken care of by this person who is doing these things to them, the only way that they can survive in this environment where reality doesn't match up, they blame themselves. They internalize it. They say, I'm the bad girl. I'm the bad one. I'm the evil one. There must be something so unlovable about me. And I really did. I was like, Reagan, I'm so sorry. I felt like there have been many times over where I felt like I duped you into marrying someone that you didn't even know you were married.
I've never once had any regrets at all.
But I was like, you should feel regret.
No.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm putting you through so much.
It's an honor and a privilege to be able to be here with you and help you.
I know you've said that many times, and it's meant a lot every time that you say that, because you do feel like, I mean, it was exhausting. Like this went on for weeks, like every night. Like there would be little things like blonde hair would be a trigger. Something that Asher would say could trigger me.
One of your abusers had blonde hair.
Yeah, it's one of my abusers. It was this thing and that thing. At one point, I was feeling like there was pain in my vagina. And I was like, I know exactly how I was raped. And then I would get the somatic memory, and then I would get the flashback, and I was like, I don't want to say this out loud. You're gonna look at me differently when I tell you this. And I was like, I'm a grown woman hiding underneath my blankets. This isn't normal. This isn't right. What the heck is wrong with me? And so there was one, was it then that I had to change my blanket, or was that in October when I had to change my blanket?
I'm so bad with time, and once we moved to Florida, I cannot. Without seasons, I don't know when anything is.
That's true. Seasons really do help you keep track.
It's always hot. It's always hot. I don't know what time of year it is. Like, oh, it's Christmas tomorrow. Whoops.
I'm sweating. So yeah, there was this one rape instance that happened underneath this particular blanket, and I had to change my blanket. I couldn't. And
you got your face burned on a light bulb.
Yes.
Too.
Yes. During that, because we were underneath the blanket.
That sibling had the light bulb under the blanket and was raping you.
Yeah. So we're going through this. I'm going through deep depression, wanting to kill myself, seriously thinking about it at times. And I remembered about this time, I think it was after the 30 days, I started coming into contact with my family again, sometime in February. And
do you want to, before you move on,
yes, I do want to address this. So you said having children has opened the floodgates for your trauma responses. I love them endlessly, but interacting with my children has brought up so many memories, somatic flashbacks. Yes. Having children is a big one.
That's you're not alone in that. Not only that, but I had so much more compassion, I guess, and patience for parents before I became a parent. Because like I would see stuff like parents do, and you're told, well, you'll understand when you're a parent. And it's like, no, I understand
less.
No, I'm not talking about my parents, because I had good parents. But like other parents that I've seen, or like your parents.
That's
like
what I was told.
cause,
Yeah.
no, because like, well, now that I'm a parent, like, how could you do that to a child? I would never do that to my own child. And so that helps wake you up to realize, oh, wait a minute, things were really messed up.
Things are so messed up. And then you have this idea, like before you have kids, you're told, you know, the parent's always right. Trust the parent. You know, all kids are brats basically at some point or another. So the parents are always in the right. And all parents love their children.
Not only that, but they put all the responsibility on the children, and the parents
Yeah.
had no responsibility in that culture.
Yeah.
Because again,
And that
we just
culture.
shared the clip of the pastor saying, children can consent unless it's a parent. So it's because it's a free for all for what other kids do to each other. And so it's on you as a child to say no or something or speak up. But then when we've confronted the parents, like, why, like, you brought people into your home that you knew were dangerous. You witnessed one of the rapes happening and you did nothing because you were afraid of how it would look. If you told your pastor, it would hurt your reputation. So you have all these excuses why you're not to blame, but it's the children's fault for, I guess, not
Yeah,
resisting somehow.
that's the thing. That was the thing. Yeah, exactly. And to some extent, like I was angry too. There's a lot of anger that comes up, especially if you are processing this for the first time, or even if you're processing it third or fourth time. It doesn't matter if you're processing this at all. Anger has a place, and you go through the stages of grief. Because you grieve the innocence that you lost. You grieve the innocence
That's the other thing, like,
that was never yours to begin with.
right. I mean, you have that meeting where all the long children go to Pastor Johnson to basically tell him what's going on so they can get him to hopefully step in and help, which all he did was just preach, basically, just lecture the offenders.
He didn't help.
But that was a 2-hour meeting. Then there was another family meeting that was recorded. There's another 2-hour meeting. And I don't hear anyone getting mad about what's happening to the kids. I hear the parents getting mad at the kids because they're on their phone too much, or not doing the dishes when they're told, or they're not doing the yard chores,
or they're
or
talking in their skimpy night clothes around the boys, causing them to stumble,
or they're texting people they're not supposed to text. I hear the parents getting really angry at the children, but no one's getting angry about what's being done to the children.
No,
there's no anger, and in these 4 hours
there
of audio,
is no accountability whatsoever.
Yeah.
None. Because in this culture, the parents are seen as kind of like a godhead. Like, would you say that's an accurate statement?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Well, based on the Vodi Bakum sermon.
Yeah.
Are you going to rule in your home, or
Yeah.
is sin going to rule in your home? Who's going to rule? You
Jesus,
or sin?
I thought Jesus was supposed to rule.
And I'm like, what the heck is this? So about this time, there was an incident that happened with one of my siblings where they were traumatized by another person, and they were sharing this with the family. And so now other people were sharing different.
Right. A man that was a friend of your family's was
kind of, yeah, I worked for him.
Groping and molesting her.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. I don't want to state their, private, what they went through.
I'm not going into specifics. I'm just saying how it would be categorized.
Yeah. It was groping and technically sexual assault. So that was very traumatizing for them. And so they were discussing it about the time that
when you were remembering what was done to you.
When I was remembering what was done to me. And so that was the topic of the conversation. They were kind of talking
and we're like,
about,
well, this is your chance.
Raped.
Everyone's talking
so
about
I
stuff.
was like, okay, I'm going to let them know, let my parents know what I've been remembering, what was done to me. And I'm going to talk to the person who did this to me and let them know, hey, I remember this, but I want you to know I forgive you. I love you. And so I said the polo.
We never intended to do a video series to talk about this. We thought
we were
this would be the end of it. We could just bring it up with the
this would be
family.
the end of it.
Do it in house.
So about this time, my mom is kind of very casually talking about, like, pretty much everybody gets raped. We just deal with it.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
I
remember hearing this polo.
I think you was it a polo?
It was a polo.
She had polo. So you just told her what happened to you, and her, first off, her tone coming back to you was like, here's the thing, like not like
Well, that
crying.
was the phone call we did. Yeah.
Okay, not like, and it's just like she immediately starts
Excuses.
talking about herself and what her experience was being
Yeah.
abused.
Coming up with all the excuses.
It's the first thing she talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then in this polo, I remember I was in the bathroom and I'm hearing her talk about, you know, a rape that was done to her. And it's like there's a screaming
You just got to get over it. Don't let it affect
that's
you.
totally going on in my brain. And I just totally lost it. And I'm just like on the floor, just like, because like as you process this kind of stuff, as you move through the pain, you acknowledge the pain that's there. You feel it, you experience it, you have to grieve, you have to weep, you have to accept it. Accepting is the hardest part, because when you accept it, I was like, I don't want to accept that I've been raped, because that means I'm somehow a victim, and I don't want to be a victim.
Mm-hmm.
That changes my
You don't want
identity.
to know that someone did that to you?
No,
That's
I
the other
don't
thing. Like,
want
why
to
would we
have
be
lost
making this up?
control. Like, I don't want to have had this done to me. And denying it just made it take so much longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent a polo to the abuser and we had a conversation. They're like, oh, thanks. They're like, yeah, I don't really remember, but that sounds like something I would do. And then I called my mom up separately and had a conversation with her, which was very exhausting. And she just had excuse after excuse of why this stuff went on. And then I called up my dad and he was just recounting all the ways he failed. Just crying.
Which at first we were appreciative of.
Yeah, at first I was like, this is great. But then it was like, oh, it's just.
It wasn't about you.
It wasn't about me. It was about him. And so I was like, okay, well, that didn't go very well. So I'm like, okay, better than I could have anticipated, than I could have expected.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is all I'm gonna get. Because I'm like, my
all
mom's
things considered, okay, that was a win.
Yeah, thought it was a win. This was fine. So
we thought they just deny it, everything. Wouldn't even believe you.
Yeah, there was no, that didn't happen to you. It was like, yeah, we remember that happening. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Great. So in this time, like, it was very difficult for me to go out in public. I had severe social anxiety. Being around people was just too much. We canceled a lot of events.
Mm-hmm.
I still had Stephanie and her husband come over. And that was a lot. Having people in the home.
It was just for like half a day.
Yeah, it was for half a day, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But still, it was a big deal for me because I was like being around family members, because family members were associated with abuse. Mm-hmm. So
even if they're not the ones who did anything.
Yeah, there were a couple times I was seriously considering just cutting myself and just ending it all because the pain was just so great. And thankfully, obviously I didn't. But there was a lot of processing, a lot of just, yeah, we'd get to a point where we would feel normal. We tried to go be around like celebrating stuff with your family, and at one point that was just too much. Mm-hmm. And when you get triggered, it's not really the other person's fault. Mm-hmm. It can happen, and it's really embarrassing.
But people don't understand that any of this. So either they feel bad, which you don't want them to feel bad, or they take it personally.
Which is understandable that they feel bad, and they might take it personally, but it's like, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. This is on me. So it was like, yeah, based on how much I broke down in public was a pretty good gauge for me. I'm like, yeah, I'm not ready for public. Okay. So then by March, I started to feel just a little bit normal. I started doing this like mental toughness challenge of doing, it's called 75 hard. And part of it is exercising twice a day for 45 minutes, getting outside. And that really helped. That like going outside for 45 minutes at a time, making sure I was getting sunshine, journaling, reading, like those things really helped. And I didn't even know they were helpful. And during this time I was reading The Body Keeps the Score, and learning that information in that book was very helpful and also triggered more memories. There was and then I think there was the start of one memory coming up, and I was seeing male genitalia, we'll just put it that way. And I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm like, there is no freaking
'Cause
way.
At this point in time, you'd only remembered girls.
I'd only
abusing
remember
you.
girls abusing me. I knew there was one instance of a cousin, one other male who I was pretty sure had done it. I thought, I wasn't sure exactly who at the time, but I was like, that maybe, and I'm like, nope, I'm done. I can't handle anymore. I put the lid on it and I'm like, surely that's it. I'm done. I'm done. So, we had my family, a couple of my siblings came down, the 3 youngest, and my parents came down in April. And we had some pretty strict rules. We're like, no one's going to be alone with our kids. Please don't use words like harlot and things like that around our kids, because we don't want them repeating those kinds of things.
I don't think we said harlot. I think we were probably too gentle. We said we don't want any like potty words. Is how we phrased it.
Yeah. And they were offended, but I was like, I don't care. I don't trust you people. I don't have any evidence for not trusting my kids around the 3 youngest, but I just don't. So that was exhausting. That was difficult. And at one point, my dad asked, what could we have done differently? I'm like, well, maybe not spanking me for 3 days straight every time I whined might have been helpful. Letting me ask questions. And, I was like, hey, he's asking the question, so I'm going to answer. So I thought, trying to build a relationship would be helpful. And then I was pregnant with Halo about this time. And so we had that coming up. And then so I can't remember exactly when I read the book, Unbroken, the story of Louis Zamperini. It's very, very good, very amazing book, very amazing story. And in it, he details how he was completely healed of his PTSD.
He was
one night.
Tortured by the Japanese.
He was tortured. And he was having problems with alcohol, and he was being domestically violent. And in one sitting, he gets healed. And I remember reading someone, I think it was Timothy Keller, actually said, he's a one in a million. Like, we don't see him as the standard. That's just an exception. And I'm like, why?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like questioning, because I'm like, why? Why does he get it, and why can't I have it?
Right. And you don't see that in the Bible. There's no special Christians in the Bible.
No.
There's only what's special is God.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
the Holy Spirit, which is what empowers you to
yes,
actually be like God and actually do the things that live the life that God wants you to live. That's what's special. It's not. So it's just a matter of how much you go down that path, how much God you have inside you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like there's any special person that's like, oh, they're special. So
No.
they get this special treatment.
No, not at all. And so I was like, it just stuck in the back of my mind. I'm like, I want to be healed. Like, this doesn't, like, why do I have to suffer like this? This doesn't make any sense to me. Like, what would it take to be healed? So that was kind of in the back of my mind. And then, so then in September of 2021, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. And that kind of was a little like, okay, that's a little shocking. And we just thought it was due to Lyme disease. So I had been helping them out with doing the Lyme program that I had been on, and I was giving them all the information I had, helping them work through like the complicated stuff. And then they decided not to do the program because it was too expensive. And to me, that felt like they were saying that they didn't want him to live because, so I got really upset. And then a couple days later,
did we already pass over the emailing the family?
That's coming up.
Okay.
That's coming up. So then on October 11th, I thankfully wrote this down. I thought I was fine. I really thought I was fine. And I was looking at a family photo of my family. And the one person who had been a big perpetrator for a lot of my life.
For years,
I'm looking at them, and all of a sudden I want to cut their face. Like I want to, and I start ripping the photo into pieces. Yeah, my mom would frequently make pronouncements that she was finally healed from it. You left a comment on one of our videos, and I was like, I want to just say that I'm fine, but back then when we started this, I thought I dealt with all the trauma. I didn't realize there was more.
Well, you were healed of the stuff you remembered.
Yes,
but then you
I have
remember
been healed of the stuff that I remembered. But
then
there's been new things.
And then those new things need to be healed.
But yes.
It's like, yeah, so
it's a process.
It'd be dishonest to say like you were hiking and you fell and you broke your leg and your leg was healed and you go hiking again and you break your other leg to say you weren't healed. No, you were healed. You just had a re-injury.
Yes.
Or a new injury.
That's a pretty good accurate thing. So, but I'm like, I just want the pain to stop. So anyway.
So there is such thing as one final healing. We just haven't gotten there yet because you're still
there
remembering
have been
stuff.
final healings for certain memories.
Yes. Certain memories they're completely healed.
They don't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have issues with it. But then there are new ones that come along. And it's like, there's more.
Yeah, and we're going to detail more in the next episode tomorrow. Right? I think it's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow's the healing one?
Yes. Yeah. So it's October 11th, I start wanting to rip up this photo and I'm like, oh snap, I start to panic and it goes bad. And I was like 7 months pregnant, six or 7 months pregnant with Halo at this point. And I just lose it. And I go and hide under the blanket and I'm just crying and I'm crying and I can't stop. And thankfully Reagan came in.
When did you see yourself as a little girl in the mirror?
That was along this set of new.
You're a bad girl.
This was along this set of new memories.
Took something out of a horror movie. Like you can picture the scene where the adults look in the mirror and then you hear like the lights flicker and there's like, and then all of a sudden
there were more instances of rape.
Now you're a little girl looking in the mirror and you're hearing.
I thought it had only happened once or twice, and now I'm getting like real time, like new flashbacks, new memories. And thankfully I had the presence of mind. I found that writing them down as they happened, as I processed these somatic memories and the flashbacks and all of that.
Yeah, we read one of those
really helped
in one of our earlier videos, one of our journal entries of what the rape was like. Because
I was in I was in the attic,
and I sent that one to your mom because your mom's like, I thought Haley had a pretty good childhood. I'm like, what do you think about this? Because I'm like, we've told you rape happened. Like, did you not know that rape is bad?
Well, when it comes to females perpetrating abuse, people don't take it as seriously as if a male did it.
So do you need to kind of explain what happened?
So
for people who don't take female on female abuse seriously?
So basically there was this one instance where it was in the attic and I remember being on a toddler mattress and we talked about the somatic experience, the somatic flashback of I started sweating.
In real time.
In real time. My entire body is covered in sweat.
In the present.
And I was sitting directly under an air conditioning vent. So that should have been physically impossible.
It must have been warm up in the attic.
It was always warm in the attic. And what triggered that memory was Asher's bedroom door closing.
Because it had
the hinge
chamber.
It had the same sound of that creaking and it slammed shut because we had our windows open. And so then I'm remembering I'm hearing, like I'm seeing myself spread eagle, as a toddler, with stuff being shoved up me. And I'm like, this hurts, please stop.
Yeah, any kind of sexual penetration against your will is rape. And females can do that.
Females can do that.
They can use objects, they can use fingers.
It's just as damaging and just as traumatic as if a male does it to you.
Right, because she also used objects on you.
Yes.
Not just her fingers. And you remember saying, stop, it hurts.
Mm-hmm. And she didn't hear me.
Mm-hmm.
She was doing it. And no, I mean they were a child as well. So it's like this is when I describe how bad this was, I'm only trying to emphasize how bad that was against me as a little child. Because when it finally ended, I was only 6 years old. I was 6 years old, and this had gone on from the time I was really like 3 or 4.
And your mom was aware of this because she walked in one time when it was happening, and all they did was severely beat you and then never talk about it again or to anyone. Like,
Yeah.
You see that happening one time, like get to the bottom of it. What's going on? What went wrong? Like to get to that point, you don't just assume that that's going to be it.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a series of just remembering the awfulness. And then, so after this first memory, like this first happens, we're like, okay, what? I'm like, I have to have a baby. I'm going to give birth at some point. Baby's due in November. I'm kind of nervous. I'm like, I don't feel safe.
What if
Because
you have a flashback while you're in
I'm like,
labor?
is it possible? I Googled, is it possible to have a flashback while you're in labor? And yeah, it happens. It's been
Labor
documented.
can trigger.
Labor can trigger because the pain. Because I was feeling pelvic pain, and I'm like, oh snap, what's gonna happen? And I'm like, I don't want to do this in the middle of having a baby. Are you crazy? That's not when you want to have those. And so I checked with my midwife because we were still planning to have a home birth with our third one. And she was like, make me the bad guy, say that I said that you have to cut your family off until after you have the baby, because she said it is very important. It is very crucial that you do whatever it takes to feel safe, because women who are about to have a baby have to feel safe in order to go into labor and in order to have the baby. So I was like, okay, so you ended up emailing the family because I was like, I can't do this. So I'll let you read that because my voice is breaking.
So I emailed everyone in the family, and it's funny, like, because down the road they would bring this up like it was all you. Like they still act like I don't exist for some reason. But I'm like, why are you getting mad at Haley? I did that thing. Anyway, so I emailed them. I said, I'm writing this email to inform you all that Haley has been experiencing some new PTSD episodes due to a recent catalytic event. I'd rather not go into details, but it's bringing back the physical sensations she experienced when she was repeatedly raped and molested as a child. Now, that's like, if I found out that was happening to like my sister or my daughter, like I would want to follow up on that. Like, hey, how can I help you? But anyway, these sensations are inducing her PTSD episodes, which are bad enough on their own, but their harm is compounded by her impending labor. And obviously these are not good for the baby either right now. Any communication from her family brings on these PTSD episodes. So that's just how I got offended at that. After talking to our midwife, it was determined that for the sake of the health of the baby and Haley having as smooth labor and birth as possible, Haley should not have any communication with her family for the time being. This is not meant to be taken personally at all, but it's simply a consequence of the PTSD.
My baby got PTSD.
That's how we got.
Clip.
I know. I need to get that clip.
That was our.
Maybe I can use that
our
in the
code.
next episode. Yeah,
our code for like
to let me know that you were dealing with stuff was we would quote
the Key and Peele skit.
A clip from a Key and Peele skit where the character says, "My baby's got the PTSDs." Anyway, so yes, if for any reason you need to get in contact with Haley, please contact me instead, which you can do by sending an email to this email address. I'm sorry I have to send this email, but I hope you will understand given the circumstances. So I feel like that's a pretty nice email. I don't think that's mean.
I mean,
it's perfect. It's a perfect call. It's perfect email. It's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that email.
I later found out. Well, even before that,
but
they
no
were
one
siding with the abusers from the very beginning.
Yes, but no one ever
Everyone
contacted me. No one ever contacted me or you after that email.
No.
And no one shared any concern for you.
My dad told me after the fact that he was so mad he almost called me up.
And I remember that.
And I told him,
it's a good thing you didn't, because you would never talk to her ever again if you violated that.
Because that was like a
request.
serious, like we had put a boundary in place. Like, please respect this.
Mm-hmm.
Because I needed distance. I needed to feel safe to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, look, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry this was going on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he told us this after the fact when he was staying in our house. I'm like, it's a good thing you didn't, because I would have made sure you never talked to her again.
I wouldn't have answered the phone, by the way.
You're going to violate her boundaries.
I wouldn't have answered the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yet they were all mad at me. Everyone was mad that I had brought this up. Everyone was mad. And this is, again.
Yeah, the one someone's like, oh, I was going through stuff. How could you bring that up while I'm going through these things?
Yeah, how could you bring this up to me? And I was like, I'm sorry, but I'm also going through hell right now. So.
And you're the one who did it to me. So I'm sorry.
And I didn't bring it up to be like, how dare you? I wish I still had the polo, but I was very, very, very kind. And like, I remember you watched it and you came to me crying and you were like,
I did.
yeah, you gave me a hug.
Jeez, you talk about me crying a lot in these.
I'm sorry.
like a-
I'm sorry.
a
It's
baby.
not that you're a baby. It's just like, because you express that kind of emotion. I know how hard it is for you to cry. So when you cry over me, it means a lot. It's not because you're a big baby or anything or some softie, but so
Anyway, yeah, it was just kind of
so
like,
yeah,
just like,
no one contacted
Yeah, it was-
you.
it was
Even
like-
though you gave them the
I'm pretty
option
sure
to still
there was-
contact you.
right. I think it was, yeah, you were telling her that you forgave her, and
Yeah.
right,
I
and
forgave her. I was
and
like,
she was a child too, so it's like we're not angry.
I'm
It's
just like
like,
letting you know
no,
this happened.
it's on the parents, because obviously she
it
was
goes back to the
abused too, to be
Yes.
doing this to another child herself, and the parents
Yes.
weren't protecting anyone, weren't getting anyone to help, and we're
No.
just shutting everyone down.
Yeah. So then, yeah, I ended up getting even more flashbacks, and I recovered memories from when I was 17 months old, piecing together that
I mean, that's
there
also
was-
why we're not using anyone's names. We're trying to protect people as much as we can. We're not mentioning anyone's names.
Yeah, because I'm trying to, but they're making it very difficult.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of like with each new memory, like I'm like I gotta grieve my innocence that I really didn't get. I didn't really get a good childhood. I didn't get any of this. And there was one instance where you had jokingly chastised me. It was just a joke. I don't even remember what it was over. I probably have it written down somewhere. And it triggered me. And then we stood up to leave the bedroom, or no, your office. We were in your office and you were walking behind me. And I was like, can you not walk behind me? I don't like that. I don't feel safe. And so you were walking next to me, and then I can't remember the sequence of events, but I ended up in the bathroom looking at myself, and I was no longer looking at adult me. I was seeing 5-year-old me staring back at me. And I could not, I was like, I'm losing my mind. What is this?
It's literally out of a horror movie.
And I'm looking at sullen face. I wish we could find the picture of me at 5. I know it's somewhere.
Oh, I know what picture. I think I know what picture.
You know
Is
what
the one we
picture
used in
I'm
Innocence
talking about.
Lost?
I think so. And all of a sudden, I'm remembering it was after a time I'd been spanked. And I was hearing, "You're such a bad girl. You're such a dirty girl." And that's what's repeating in my head. And I'm like having this whole like, I was like so dissociating and like it was like an out of body experience. And I was like, what the heck is happening? And then I remembered the bathroom I was in at the Franklin house where I grew up. I knew it was the bathroom off the kitchen. And I was like, I know exactly which bathroom I was in. And so then I went to try to sit back down next to you to be all normal and everything. And then I just start sobbing. And then, yeah, we ended up having to deal with that. And, so I was like, oh no, we got thrust back into this again. And so I'm like, I need some help. I need some help this time.
This one?
Yeah, that's the one. Not that one. Yeah, that one. That was about what I was looking at. Yeah, you're gonna take it.
Yeah.
That was literally what the face, everything that was looking back at me. And that's what I was seeing in the mirror. And not adult me, but that face. This sad, sullen, "You're a bad girl" is what I kept hearing
That's a good girl.
her say.
It's not a bad girl.
So yeah, so that's what you were telling me. You were like, "You're a good girl." You kept
Mhm.
saying that over and over. So like anytime I would tell you like a lie I was feeling, you would always counteract it with the truth. And you would be very quick. And like there were so many things that would set me off. Like we were watching a Criminal Minds episode, and there was one episode where the little girl gets rescued from the uncle who's abusing her. And I didn't realize why that was triggering at the time either. But I'm like, why was there no one for me? So I was like, this anger that just kept coming up, and I was like, I seriously need some help. So in a conversation I'd had with I'd read this book, The River of Forgetting. And it was a woman who, when she was in her 50s, she remembered her father raping her. It was one time, and then she had all these, these memories come flooding back, and she ended up in therapy. And after 10 years, she wasn't really that much progressed. And I'm like, this just feels like hell to just be stuck here. Like, I want something that's going to help me.
There aren't really much answers for this. It's just like you're just going to have to deal with it for the rest of your life.
You'll get some coping mechanisms for the rest of your life. And I'm like, I don't want to just have coping mechanisms. Like, can't I just be done with the pain to some extent, to some degree? Can that just go away? So I ended up talking to Reagan's mom about this. She was like, I might have someone who might have some answers for you. She's like, let me call them and see if they'd be willing to talk to you. And so again, I had a meeting with this woman, lovely, amazing angel of a woman. And she spent like 4 hours that first meeting just talking to me, hearing my story. And again, telling everything that I'd remembered, like, was just, it's so very therapeutic. Again, when you're not allowed to talk about things, that's when talk therapy is helpful. Maybe talk therapy isn't for everybody and it's not helpful for everybody, but for those, even Jordan Peterson says this, for those
told to shut up and not talk about it.
Yes, who were shamed into silence, and all of this threatened that if you spill the secrets, then you're going to be the reason our family falls apart, and it's all going to be on you. Like, talking about it is very, very, that in and of itself brings a measure of healing and freedom. And so the more I would say this out loud, the more I would talk about it was freeing in its own right. And the more I would get comfortable saying it, and it would get less scary. And so she had some interesting views on what was going on, and she wasn't experienced with childhood trauma either. But she was able to help me see that there were, other spiritual forces at play, and also that I didn't have to suffer.
Just give you hope.
She gave me hope. She gave me so much hope, and she prayed over me, and I finally felt like there was a little bit of calm, which was good because I was only like a month away from giving birth to Halo. And well, I thought I was a month away from giving birth to Halo. She ended up being a stubborn little one because trauma got in the way. Like, I talked to my midwife after the fact because I ended up having to have a hospital birth because she was 16 days overdue. And in the state of Florida, you can't, if you're 42 weeks, you can't deliver at home. It's not legal anymore. I mean, you can, just the midwife can't be there present. And we're like, we might be able to do this on our own, but we don't want to take this. Yeah, I was like, maybe. I had not wanted to do a hospital birth, period. Like, I was terrified of doing them.
And rightfully so, because it ended up being an absolute nightmare. But part of that was because we went in last minute and they weren't really prepared.
And we were working with a group that wasn't the perfect fit for us. We'll just say that. And I was also an unknown. They didn't know anything about my history. They just had to take me as an emergency patient.
So the most recent one that we had in the hospital, that was a much better experience.
It was beautiful, redeeming. That was a redeemable experience. So they had to put me on, make the baby come basically forcibly with drugs and all that. And the birth itself was beautiful. I think God's grace was all over that.
The birth was the easiest part.
The birth was the easiest part. Like, and he's not just saying that because people would be like, well, you can say that.
You crack jokes and stuff like while you're in labor and in transition. You're like telling them like, I'm in transition now. And they're like, I don't believe you because you're like laughing and joking. Like, the baby's coming. The nurse is like, well, I'm guessing I'm going to have to deliver your baby because the doctor didn't believe you that you were in transition. And they're not gonna be here
Yeah. It was, there was, God's grace was all over that. And the birth was beautiful. Trying to get out of there because Halo ended up having some issues with her bilirubin levels or something like that. So trying to get out of there was a freaking nightmare. We felt like prisoners.
That's a different story though.
And that's a different story. But through this, like, I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to be okay. We're going to get through, you know, dealing with all this stuff. And I get some measure of peace, but then it just, the pain. I can't get rid of the pain.
So what are you talking about when you're talking about pain? What kind of pain are you talking about? Like
It's
physical pain or emotional pain or both?
It's like someone has ripped your soul out of your body, shredded it into pieces, and then shoved it back into your heart, into your body. And you just feel hollow, you feel broken, you just feel like something is wrong and nothing will fix it. And maybe it's a mix of bitterness, maybe it's a mix of resentment, maybe it's a mixture of hatred, but it's when you have been violated against, it breaks you.
Mm-hmm.
And they have done studies, and they
feel so
vulnerable
and helpless.
You do. You feel vulnerable, you feel helpless, you feel like it could happen again, because I wasn't able to stop it then. Why wouldn't it happen again?
Right.
But also they've shown that whenever you're traumatized, you have a severe traumatic event, a part of you breaks off. And if it's that bad, your brain will separate it from the rest of you. So you are fragmented. I was fragmented into a million tiny pieces. And I didn't know how to make myself whole. Like, I'm a Christian. I have Jesus. Like, what is wrong with me? Mm-hmm. I think I have Jesus.
It doesn't feel like it.
I had a don't get me wrong. I had a relationship I had an understanding. I communicated with Jesus. I prayed during all this time. I was like, I don't get what's wrong. People are telling me, just be grateful. Just be glad that they fed you. And they didn't abandon you. I'm like, maybe they should have abandoned me. Maybe abandonment would have been better at this point.
So I wouldn't have to endure.
I wouldn't have sustained all of that torture and that pain. And it's just like, I couldn't. Like, I would do things and think, okay, yay, I would have some relief, and I'd be like, I'm fine. And then it was just like a gut punch. The pain would just it's just, oh, I don't even know. It's just like a black, like you're broken and you don't know how to fix yourself. And you don't know if you'll ever be whole again. You don't know if you'll ever be right again, if you'll ever feel normal, if you'll ever feel healthy. Like,
you don't know if you can go on living.
No. And I was like, okay, I know that my brain has been broken. Like, this is not a new thing. Trying to make friends. Oh my gosh, trying to make friends while you have PTSD or dealing with all of this is like, it breaks your brain. Like, trauma breaks your brain. It destroys it. And I'm like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to a place where I just feel like a normal human being, like, ever again. Like, and I'm like, I don't recognize this person. I don't know who I am. Like, I know at times you'd be like, yeah, I don't recognize you either. And it's like, it wasn't something you said as like you were despising me, or it was just an acknowledgement of, yeah, you're a different person.
Much different place.
You're much different than when I first married you. I'm like, yeah, I don't know who I am. I have no idea who I am. I don't know anything about myself, and it's frustrating. And I don't know how to get to a place where I can feel like myself, where I can feel whole again. And like, at this point, I start drinking alcohol, because I'm like, I know it's not right. I'm like, I know better, but I'm in so much pain right now that, you know what, at least while I, drinking, I feel just slightly a bit numbed out. And
you didn't really intend to. It kind of just.
No, I didn't set out to.
Just kind of slipped into it.
It did slip in.
Gradually.
It was just a gradual thing. And it didn't last for too long. It was just like over the course of like 2 months, but it was still serious enough that I was left questioning, like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why can't I just, I'm like, if I'm a Christian, then Jesus sucks. Like, I don't know what's different between me and a non-Christian at this point. I couldn't tell you. And I think that's where we're going to stop.
All right.
Because this has been 2.5 hours.
I know. So, yeah, we'll pick up tomorrow evening with how you actually finally got healing for all that pain that you just described.
Yeah, that pain. Because I do want to acknowledge I've dropped hints here and there that the past couple of weeks have been a new fresh hell. I'm sorry. I know that sounds like really like, oh my gosh, like you're talking about no.
Do you remember the worst things that happened to you? Everything we've shared in this video series is like, I mean, they're really bad.
They're really bad. Yeah.
Arguably, the stuff you've remembered recently is worse.
It is worse. And that's why it's just now surfacing.
Right.
Because how it works
it's
is
like
when
you can
you
handle
get
this.
a healing.
You level up.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes, you level up, but you get deeper. You get deeper into how badly you've been harmed, how badly. And some people are like, maybe you're just making it up. And I'm like, I would love to be making it up. But I cannot deny the pain.
You also have another sibling confirming similar things.
That too. I have other siblings.
From the same person. So
yes, from the same person. So I had debated whether or not I was going to share any of this. Awesome.
yes. Oh wow. Interesting. That's interesting.
That's so
a kismet.
That is. It's very kismet.
And thank you so much for watching and
watching to the end, man.
And your comments and understanding that we didn't think anyone was going to watch these videos when we started them.
No, at least not to the end. We're like, maybe people pop in and out, but yeah. So there's levels. There are levels, and I'm gonna go into detail later on this week.
Saturday is what we're shooting for, right?
For that. But yeah, tomorrow night I'm gonna get into how I found healing for that pain that I was feeling in 2022, and how I encountered the true Jesus. That's a very good question. Dealing with new trauma. Yeah, we've had a lot of new trauma while processing childhood trauma.
I mean, I guess we kind of already processed the childhood trauma. So I guess I'm not sure. Is she talking about dealing with new trauma that she remembered, or trauma that's going on right now in her life?
Yeah.
So that's the way I read it. Was like
okay,
new trauma that is happening while also processing childhood. Like
that's how I read it too.
Okay.
But if we're reading that incorrectly, just clarify. But I think when you're processing childhood trauma and something new happens.
We've been through new trauma. We've just been through very challenging times.
Well, what happened with Ember at the doctor's office?
Oh yeah, that was traumatic.
That was traumatic. Okay. There's no other way to slice that one. That was traumatic. I mean, some people would say the death of a father is traumatic. So to some extent, there's pain and grieving, but I'll save my thoughts for Saturday on that one. So yeah, this is me personally. Something I have found is the ability so not everyone has this ability, but when you are traumatized, and I talked about the fragmenting, you can feel yourself in different parts. Normal people feel themselves in their whole entirety. They're like, oh, if they feel sick, they kind of feel it in their whole body. Whereas with traumatized people, we have, and I call it a gift. I call dissociation a gift. The ability to shut things down. So there's an exercise that I have done. And I've had other people do it, and it has worked for them. Where you use imagery to help you access this information about yourself. And image therapy is a thing. So you close your eyes and you think of, you gather up all. It's a beautiful sound. You gather what I've done is I've thought about all the painful things, the things that I don't want to think about. And I put them in a container, something that I feel is safe. For me, I have a vault. That's where my trauma has been stored. It's a vault that sits at the bottom of my mind. When I visualize it, it's big. it's been scary looking, and for most of my life it was shut, but here in the past couple of years it was opened. So I'll stuff things and I'll block it off, and I will decide we're not going to think about that. We are going to put a hold on that. Sometimes you're not always able to just shut it down. Sometimes it's still interfering with your life. And prayer is another good one, asking God for help if that is something that you are comfortable doing. Sometimes asking God for help is not a possibility because sometimes thinking about God could be a trigger. I recently discovered.
And reading the Bible.
And reading the Bible was like when the words that were used to traumatize you are supposed to be a source of comfort. Now you're stuck with this, two prevailing realities. You're like, yeah, that doesn't feel safe anymore. So yeah, I guess I just use dissociation to shut down and box up the childhood trauma that I've been dealing with, to then focus on the new stuff that happens. And then just realizing that with any kind of trauma, like once you start working through any kind of trauma, you understand that there is a cycle. There are phases that you go in and out of. And sometimes time can be helpful, but not always. Because you still have to confront the pain. You have to deal with the pain.
Yeah, didn't you come across a good quote that was like, time actually doesn't heal all wounds, it just makes them more distant or something?
Yes, that was the quote from the book The Courage to Heal. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of how, like, I'll shelve the trauma if I can, or just shove it back into the vault. That's where I put mine, and then just try to deal with whatever new stuff is currently happening, so that
then when you're ready, you go back to the vault.
Yep. When the crisis or the new trauma has happened, I'm like, okay,
Right,
we dealt with that.
Someone
I'll
who
come
had
back.
like a manila folder.
Mhm.
Picture it.
Yeah, just whatever image can
Imagination.
helps you. But yeah, imagination is very helpful in dealing with what goes on, because you can't see the pain with your physical eyes. I mean, there are symptoms that you side effects that people deal with every day. And I just recently learned I have a list of 102 of them that are still interfering with my everyday life. So hopefully that answers the question. If it didn't, then just send a message or let us know. And
You're crazy cupcake. All right. Well, if you have any comments, leave them below, and we'll do our best to answer them. And otherwise, we'll see
you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow night. Where we're finally reaching the part we've been driving at this whole time.
Yes.
Where you actually got healing.
Some relief.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. All right.
Have a good evening.
Goodbye.